We already told, we did tell. Who said you asked?
Where's that station? Two. And we're looking. It's actually the same. And the price is good.
Do we need more room? I think we have. Give us just a few minutes while we get a few more seats. Are we good for the video? Well, it looks like we're almost settled, so we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll call this meeting to order. First of all, we appreciate all of you being here with us tonight, and grateful to have you. We are missing Councilman Roosevelt. I think he's attending virtually. Is that correct? So we do have a full council tonight. Appreciate you being here. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you being here tonight. To begin, we've asked Councilman Allen to give us an opening prayer, and then following the prayer, we'll go ahead and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we're grateful to meet today as members of this community and town in which we live. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather together and discuss the plans of Roosevelt City, the ways that we can help make our town a better place to live, and we wish we can be able to address all the needs here, and we appreciate those who are here to comment and help us in these decisions. We're grateful for the area in which we live. We're grateful for those who sacrifice so much to give us the freedoms that we have. We ask a blessing upon this meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. To begin, let's look over the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any amendments or corrections that need to be made to those minutes?
I'd motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes by Councilman Baird and a second by Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. as is customary with our meetings, we do have a public comment period at the beginning of each meeting. You can take up to 3 minutes to address the council if you'd like. We'd ask that you state your name and come to the pulpit. Are there any here tonight that would like to take that opportunity? There will be a public hearing, and everybody will be able to comment in that as well, but something that may be not pertaining to the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on. We do have a recognition tonight. Chief Watkins. There it is. We'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We'd like to recognize Sergeant Moran Harrison of the Police Department. He is brought towards UBIC celebration and has successfully in the last several years put forth public safety first. And I'm very impressed with his abilities to place that together. We'd like to recognize him.
Thank you. And where is Moran?
Yeah.
We should congratulate him. Yeah. Well, we appreciate all he does and all our police force does for Roosevelt City. Do a great job. So, our first item is the redevelopment agency, and I'm assuming that's why most everyone is here. We're excited to have you here and have a discussion on that and what that entails and what that looks like for our city. Before we convene as the redevelopment agency, we do have Cody here with us, who's helping us put this together and design this. And Cody, would you mind taking some time and explaining what the redevelopment agency is, what tax incremental financing is, and how that affects our residents here?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's. All right, so let's first talk about what it is, what the redevelopment agency is. So this body, the city council, has a sister entity that is made up of the same members of the council called the redevelopment agency of Roosevelt City. And its purpose is to promote economic development in the city, and it has specific statutory authority that it can use to bring funds in and use those funds. And one of the tools that are is proposed to be used at this time is to use funds available to the board. So if you're a council, you'll be the RDA board here in a moment, to use that to invigorate Main Street. So here's just a highlight of what this specific project is, and then there may be additional questions. So the first thing is, the goal is to invigorate Main Street. We have ARPA funds that are made available to the city. So the plan is to use $400,000 of those ARPA funds for a grant program and a revolving loan fund.
And that's actually 800,000 now, correct, Rhonda?
Yeah, you're right. Yep, you're right. ARPA is the Recovery Act, the Federal Recovery Act.
So those funds were given to municipalities and government entities. It was funded during COVID and to help businesses and communities overcome the trials and the difficulties that COVID caused. And so that money was basically granted to Roosevelt City to utilize to benefit businesses in the area and people in the area to get them back on their feet. And so that money has been spent for the most part. We did hold in anticipation of this project coming up. We held $800,000 of that money to go towards this project to get the ball rolling on our downtown and to start that process. That's a good question.
So the nice thing about that 400,000 is that it's sitting here at 800,000. Thank you, Mayor. That 800,000 is sitting here at the city, and it gives the RDA board in the city an opportunity to create a grant program and a revolving loan. And that's the desire of the board, is that let's reinvigorate Main Street. There'll be a process in the future to apply for these funds, both either for a grant that you could use as a down payment towards a loan. If you, for some reason, couldn't qualify for a loan, you can come to this board and say, I'd like to apply for a revolving loan fund. The grant program, as you know, grants are free money. They go out, they don't come back. And so the purpose of the RDA, the redevelopment agency, is to create a tool where future growth in the area, new tax value, not new taxes, but new tax value. So you improve Main Street or something is built that adds value to the tax rolls. The new money from the new tax money would come to this board and replenish that grant fund, so that future members of the community can come and apply for these funds. So the purpose of this meeting specifically is to create that CRA, a Community Reinvestment Area Project Area, so that you have a geographic boundary where those funds will come and can be diverted back to this board to this. And then the revolving loan fund will revolve, so as people pay back their funds, that will replenish the revolving loan fund, and future people can apply for that money as well. So the focus is the Main Street businesses to improve their storefronts. We did 4 years ago, this body, the City Council, commissioned design guidelines for improvements to your storefront. And those are available on the website, the city's website. It gives ideas of how to make, if you're gonna make improvements to your storefront, here are some ideas that you can utilize so there's a uniformity feel on Main Street of that everyone's working together towards a common goal. So those are that's the purpose of the CRA. We do need buy-in from the taxing entities, the levy taxes, the city council, which is you, the county, the school district, and some of the others. So let's go to the next slide. I think this is the one that may be most interesting to most of you here. So the CRA and property taxes. Again, a CRA is a geographic defined area, and we'll show you the map here in a moment. You may have it in your letter. That the CRA is a tax diversion and not a tax increase. So what that means is the taxes have a source and a use, right? You pay the taxes. Most people are taxpayers. And then where does that money go? In a CRA, we divert a portion of that money that would go to tax entities back to this board. So if you look at the graph on the bottom right, if you think of that, the years are along the bottom and the value of taxes is along the left side. That blue would represent the amount of taxes that are being generated from Main Street businesses right now for all the tax entities, school district, the county, mosquito abatement district, water conservancy, etc. That stays the same. That money continues to be paid by people in the geographic area along Main Street and goes like it always did before. But as new value comes on, so you have new improvements made, the property appreciates, there's new value created. And so the orange piece would be 25% of that new revenue would go to all those taxing entities as it normally would. And then the gray would be a portion that would come back to the RDA board for the purpose of the grant fund, replenishing the grant. So hopefully that chart explains what's happening in this with this tool. So again, third bullet point, or second bullet point, taxes from the new tax value divert. There's new tax value when the improvements are made and when something's built, and the fourth one's the most important one, diverted taxes. So we're not increasing taxes, it's just a diversion of the taxes you already pay. And the final bullet there, taxes only increase when your taxable value increases. So if you make improvements, then you'll pay more in taxes, or when the taxing entity raises taxes. So if this board chooses to have a truth in taxation hearing, then you would notice that to the public and everyone. Just a couple more slides. I know you're anxious to share your thoughts. So in terms of the dollar amount, that golden line down at the bottom, we anticipate that approximately $3.8 million would come back to the revolving loan fund over a 15-year period. And that has to be approved by the city, the county, and the school district to divert that taxes. So that hasn't been done yet. It's just being proposed by the CRA. Let's go down to the next slide here. This is just a quick approval process. So why are you here today? What's the purpose of this public hearing? So we've gone through this process already. We adopted a resolution in 2019 to establish the boundaries. You can see on the right. And we were authorized to draft a project area plan and budget, which has been drafted and been available on the city's website and here in the city to read. And now we're holding this public hearing to give comment on that plan and that budget, which is summarized in what I just shared with you. And then once that public hearing has been held, the RDA can choose to approve it, modify it, or abandon it. It's up to you. And then we need to finalize the project by meeting with all the taxing communities and entering into an interlocal agreement where they promise to give some of that money back. And I think we summarize this. That's what I have to share. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Cody. What I think we'll do next is, let's go ahead and recess as the Roosevelt City Council and convene as the redevelopment agency. So we need a motion to do that.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Howland, all in favor? All right, any opposed? Okay, we'll consider ourselves as acting as the redevelopment agency of Roosevelt City. Now let's go ahead and, before comments, let's go ahead and have questions, because I'm sure a lot of people here have questions. So if you have any questions regarding what's been discussed or how this will work, is there anybody here that has questions in what we're trying to accomplish or how it actually functions? Yes.
Community redevelopment is a pretty broad term, and I'm wondering what you have in mind. Is it storefronts? Is it paint? Is it the buildings? Is it tax breaks? All of the above?
Not necessarily tax breaks. That's not something that we're entertaining. More storefronts and actually helping the businesses bring their properties up to code and up to modern, uniform look and also more modern. We don't want to get too uniform, but we do know that there's a need to spruce up our downtown. Let's be honest. And those businesses on downtown, they're not the most lucrative businesses, but they're very important to our community. And they're a really great tax source, sales tax source for our community. And so we want to help them and we want them to be viable businesses. And so again, the $800,000 that we have saved was money that we got from the federal government for COVID relief and to help those types of businesses. So what they would do is they would meet certain criteria to be eligible for those funds. And they could take loans or they could take grant or a mixture of both. Loans would be paid back at a low interest. The grant would be, they wouldn't have to pay back, obviously, but then as that grant pool diminishes, we need some way to replenish that. And so the tax incremental financing, what it would do is it would freeze the tax rates that are currently there. And then the taxing entities that receive those taxes, their rate would be frozen over the next however long. We propose 15 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10. But the taxes that they would receive would be frozen at that rate. So if anything appreciates in that area, normally there's not going to be an additional tax, but as property appreciates or somebody comes and builds a building, things like that, then that additional tax beyond that frozen rate is what would come back to the taxing entity, to us as a redevelopment agency to replenish that grant side of things. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, people would have, there's certain criteria that would have to be met. We want some uniformity to our downtown. And so there would be some stipulations on how they could get that money. They could improve their buildings if they wanted to with their own dime, and they wouldn't have to adhere to that. But to get the money that's available from the city, they would have to adhere to certain things.
Another question, I'm not quite sure.
No, you did.
These, in the letter, there was about close to $5 million up front from various funding sources listed. One of the main ones, like the Duchesne County School District, for example. And have they, from what we were told just a few minutes ago, that hasn't been approached really yet.
No,
Do we have any idea whether they're on board with that, or do we know it all at this point? Or?
we don't, and we're not 100% sure. This meeting tonight was to gather information, get comments. If we need to redesign or redraw the boundaries of the agency, maybe there's some taxing entities that would participate if it was from here to here, but they won't participate if it's the full thing. So tonight's just to hear comments and to see what the general feeling is about the idea of doing this. And then if it seems like we can create the redevelopment agency in that area anyway, even if nobody participates. But there's not a good reason to do that if they won't. But if it looks like there may be an opportunity that some would, then we could modify terms, we could modify boundaries, we could, everything's up for negotiation. This is just a stab in the dark, if you will, best guess, and obviously we think it's a great idea. We would hope that we could get participation from those taxing entities, because ultimately those entities would benefit over the long term with, as those buildings are improved and they appreciate and things like that. The end result is everybody wins in the county. So we would hope that we could partner with those entities and have them participate.
Yeah, sure. Covered it really well, but I'm thinking, just kind of, another way of explaining, like, so after this term of this, RDA is up, so after 15 years, the values should have gone up for the buildings within the RDA, and then those benefits would kick in. We would no longer take money, and the entities like the school and those would get the full amount. So it would actually benefit you, but it would take about 15 years to get it there to where those values are up. And if the values don't go up, then there's really no point in doing this. But the hope is that values go up everywhere so that everyone can benefit after 15 years.
And the 5 million that you saw on the paperwork, that was an anticipation of an accumulative amount over the 15-year period. And the redevelopment agency would receive potentially 75% of that. And that's why you see almost around 5 million in total tax revenue increase over that 15 years. Not because taxes raised, but because anticipated values would go up, and 75% would come to Roosevelt. That's where the 4,063,000 comes from. But the total that you saw in your letter was more like 5 million, because that's the total anticipated tax value that would be increased. And that other $1 million would still go back to the other taxing entities. So that 25% would go back to the school district and Duchesne County.
I wanted, before we shut up, I would like to say that I think most of us appreciate your efforts as a council in trying to help us to improve those. We always want that, and we want to see our city continue to flourish and grow. We live here and we love Roosevelt, and so we appreciate your efforts. We'll always have concerns about how money is spent and how it's generated.
Absolutely.
And if we move money from the county school district, for example, then what's to keep the county from having a tax to get that back, because they don't feel like they've been wasting it up to this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some questions that can't be totally answered, but that we, as citizens have concerns about it, we appreciate your effort.
Well, those are valid concerns. Any other questions? Yes, yes, ma'am, and then sir. And if you would, yeah, if you take the mic, I guess it's hard for everybody to get to the podium, so, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understand,
Can you state your name, ma'am? Sorry to interrupt.
Paula Lund,
Thank you.
that even though you have half of the town in your area, the only thing that you're gonna be working on is Main Street?
Correct. So and it just depends. That's a good question. Cody, can you answer that? So the question is, she mentioned half the town, and that is a big spot. I think the reason that is drawn that way is that is everything that has, and I think Mayor Ryan, that was rezoned commercial quite a long time ago. I think I was on the council at that time. We rezoned all of that area. You were the mayor.
In about 8 or 10 years.
Yeah. And so, Paula, this is an area that just outlines the commercial property of Roosevelt City. Now, if you're a resident in that area and you don't change your use, meaning you still live there as a resident, it will not, your property tax will not increase. Only proportionate to what it normally would increase as it appreciated over time, like it normally does. So, as far as being able to utilize the funds generated in that area for other purposes other than downtown, what's the answer to that?
So right now, the anticipation is to use all the funds in the area, primarily for businesses along, the northwest portion of Main Street, to improve that area of town. We're thinking of traffic slowing, benches, planter boxes, improving the storefronts, things that are gonna make that a place where you could spend time as a community together. So the anticipation, the way the plan is currently written, is it wouldn't be used anywhere else other than along Main Street, but you do have the prerogative as the RDA board to use it in the boundaries or outside if they benefit. But primarily our design is not to use them outside the boundaries, it's just to do it on Main Street.
And our goal is Main Street for the most part well, that's leaving a little larger than I thought it was going to be. So. And so that's up for negotiation too. If we need to shrink that a little bit, we can do that as well. And sir, in the front, you had a question?
Yeah. My name is Manny Nelson. I live at 258 North 700 East. When you mentioned several years ago, the city wanted me to, and the neighborhood to move our property into to make it for commercial use. Yeah. So my question at that time, and it's still a question, yeah, as long as I live there and that's my residence, my taxes will be based on resident taxes rather than any commercial or so forth like that. I'm retired and, they fixed income. And of course, I'm worried about taxes.
Sure.
And they have gone up since the city come to me and if I would allow that, my property to be rezoned, then I could get based on the fact that as long as I'm living there as a resident, and my property will be taxed as such. Now, do we still have that reassurance?
Yeah, as long as your property doesn't change use, then you'll be well. let me clarify. You mentioned that your property tax has gone up since the time that you've been told that it wouldn't go up. Is that correct?
Well, I figured that was appreciation.
And so if you look at your, and Irene and I talked about this, if you look at your tax notice this year, property tax, you're gonna get a little sticker shock. That's nothing to do with Roosevelt City, by the way. So, so your taxes will increase at a normal rate that they always would. This is not gonna impact what you're taxed unless you change your use, the way you use that property from residential to commercial, or you improve your property in some way, then it could be valued at a higher rate. The assessor would determine that, the county assessor. And again, that wouldn't be anything Roosevelt would add. It's just if you, and that's the same thing on Main Street. So if we have a building on Main Street that decides to improve their building with the funds that we have, then they could be taxed higher because the big building value will be more. And that'll all come down to the assessor and how that works. So, but your use and your taxes won't change the way they're being assessed right now. And Manny, are you Matt's dad, father?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. We lost a good one when we moved out of the area, so.
Well, lost the son, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I miss him and his family.
Yes, we do too. Yes, man in the back.
My name's Heather Townsend. I'm just wondering if parking for that area has been considered into this, because it is a struggle down there at the business owner.
Absolutely, and so that's part of the, and this is just to get the redevelopment agency started, start these negotiations, if we can get the taxing entities on board, but we do have a master plan for Main Street. We understand that parking is terrible. One of the things that I personally dislike about Main Street is the parallel parking on the roads. That's super dangerous. One of the ideas is to actually extend the sidewalks out where the parallel parking is, get more room between the streets and the businesses, but then identify areas to park off the main road. And so we're looking at that right now, and that would be part of this master plan. So some of the funds that we would receive from the TIF would go for those types of projects to improve the parking and again to invigorate our downtown. One of the ideas, actually, we went to a conference last spring, and they talked about slowing the traffic down on Main Street, and everybody, your initial reaction is, whoa, it's gonna bottleneck and narrowing the streets actually and slowing it down. But they've done studies that by slowing it down, everybody right now is going 35 miles an hour and then stopping at a stoplight and waiting, and then accelerating to 35 miles an hour and then stopping at the next stop. By slowing that traffic down, you get people through at the same rate without all the stop and go, and you quiet, it quiets the streets. It creates a more inviting environment for people to walk and be down there. And so that's kind of the vision that we're going for. And we're looking at is providing that space so that people want to be downtown. And parking is definitely one of the things that's on the radar for that. So, any other questions? Yes. Mr. Timothy, I knew you were going to have some questions.
I'm Bruce Timothy, not to confuse my brother. I want to start off by telling the definition of a pessimist, and that's an experienced optimist. I really wonder in my mind, I've always felt that main streets from old times have cancer and they're dying. And it doesn't matter what all you do to a cancer patient, they're going to die. And I don't see narrowing a street to improve traffic flow at all, with all the traffic we have. Many of you have been through Heber City, and there's traffic like crazy going through there, and I don't see they have any other options where to put that traffic. And I don't know that we do either. But I also if I were a business owner on Main Street, I wonder, okay, what could I do to increase my profits? Because that's what business is about, the revenue. Is changing my storefront going to improve profits? Is it going to make it easier to park and get to my building? I don't see that's happening. You know, to spend $2, $3, $4 million in doing that. Well, what do you really end up with?
That's a good question. And what I'd like to do, and I'm not prepared tonight, but there's been several other communities and cities that have done this, and they've been super successful. And they talk about, you know, the thought is, or we tend to lean to, let's get rid of our downtown, let's demolish the buildings, let's start afresh, let's get some big, you know, superstores down there or whatever it may be, some restaurants. And what they found is that by reinvesting in downtowns and helping those small businesses out, storefronts, making them inviting, having people come, that actually has benefited them. And they realized that the tax base from those small businesses becomes much more than a Taco Time or McDonald's or something like that. And so they've actually been really beneficial. And there's a lot of cities that have done it. And so we can get, obviously before we would move forward with this, 100%, we would get a lot of that data and look at what's worked, what hasn't worked. I'm with you if it's just a great idea, but really no substance. I mean, I don't think we do that either. That's a heavy lift for in 15-year or 10-year, how long it is, commitment to really not get much of a benefit. And we don't want that either. And so we'll flesh all those things out before we get to that point. We'll have several more meetings like this, obviously, and talk about those things. The last thing we want to do as a council, at least I'll speak for myself, but I think I speak for the council, is to do something that's wasteful, especially with taxpayers' dollars. We want it to be something that'll actually be beneficial, not only now, but for years and years to come. And we know the downtown, we have a problem. I just think that not doing anything is just kicking the can down the road. And so, yeah, but those are good comments, good thoughts, for sure. Any thoughts from the council on any of that? I've been talking a lot.
I was just thinking, one of the benefits of like widening sidewalks and things like that is allowing businesses space for like outdoor dining and stuff like that too. So that's just one little teeny benefit that I was thinking about.
I do have a thought, and I see the roads in the back, but there's a few properties that you guys have overhauled or renovated and things like that. But I look at the new, and I don't want to like put plugs in for anyone up here because that's not what we're supposed to do. But like Barefoot Baker and the Witch Garden, I think, is the other one. They just renovated that house on First West, and that's awesome. I mean, they have great business there. Parking is kind of an issue for them, but you go down to Cedar City and you look at their downtown, and that's what they've done is they've renovated a lot of those old buildings, and and it's pretty vibrant, and it's pretty neat to see. So that's kind of the vision that we're going for.
You know, places like Cedar City, they have an interstate that's taking all the traffic through it.
Sure.
We have a major highway that goes right down our main street.
Yeah.
And you can't restrict that to make it so somebody could go out on the sidewalk and eat.
Well, and I don't want to be combative in any way. What we would do is let the engineers look at our traffic. We do traffic studies and everything else and determine what would be the right solution or not. And I agree with you. To just go willy-nilly and do that would not be appropriate. So we would make sure we did studies and everything else to determine what would actually work and what would be best. Yes, Mr. Gardner.
Hopefully you could get landowners to have enough pride in the community to do their front. I did my front, it wasn't that much. And how do we do that without even giving them?
That's
They
good.
should step up and do it on their own, but good luck with that. That's what
Yeah, I think I know, and you've seen what I've done with the property that I own on Main Street too. And so I get exactly what you're
there's
saying.
a time you've got to do something, you know.
Yeah.
Landowners need to step up.
And
They can't be bailed out on.
I don't disagree. I would say though that, I had the funds to be able to do what I did there. You may have too. If I was a business that was struggling a little bit, I mean, I was making do, but just barely making do, that would be the last thing on my mind, even though, studies would show that by, putting lipstick on a pig and painting it a little bit and doing a few things would probably actually benefit you. And maybe there needs to be more education on that as well. I get what you're saying, but, and that point was brought to me by another individual that the amount of money maybe we would give to a business wouldn't be an incentive enough for them to do anything. I can tell you, I'm looking at repaving a property that I own, near State Street. And there was a grant that was available through the county, and it was 10% of what the project cost was. And I was willing to move forward at that just because that's the 10% less that it would cost me, and yeah, I'll make that investment. So maybe it's just enough to get people to just over that hump, you know what I mean, to actually do something. And I do get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm Joan Ryan, and I think the storefronts, the improvements, sounds like a great idea. I think all of us know that Main Street is looking like it needs to be improved. But going along with what Les said, my father had a business on Main Street for 45 years. And every day he went out and swept the walks, kept them washed, kept the windows clean. Those are little things. And even if you have beautiful storefronts, if the store owners don't clean it up, it's still going to look trashy. And I feel so disappointed when I walk down Main Street and see how dirty, so many of them are. And I know that there are store owners that are trying to keep it looking good. But I think there has to be that sense of pride in store owners.
Joan, you make a super good point, and I've noticed the same thing. We've had this discussion with the Chamber of Commerce too, because they're not the Chamber of Commerce. We have this, Chamber of Commerce. And how do we incentivize those businesses? Because those are things that don't cost anything to go down there and do that and take pride in that. And we're looking at that too. Since we're in a public hearing and we have a lot of people here, I'm curious what you would think, because there's a couple of ways to incentivize. There is force, citing people. There's doing it for them. And then there's reward. So what's a good combination of that? And so that's what we're looking at, is we don't really want to force people or penalize people, fine them or cite them. So we're looking at ways that we can incentivize with persuasion and awards and things like that. In Vernal, I just talked to one of the chamber members over in Vernal yesterday, and they've been doing awards for the downtown for beautification and cleanliness for a long time. And so as a city, that's one of our main focuses. We've got all of these projects, if you've noticed, we're doing too many probably projects right now. We've got quite a few that we're doing, and we should be done with those by spring next year. So the next focus is city beautification, and that's why this one's coming up tonight, is getting these things in place so that by next year we can start off on this. But that's part of it. You hit the nail on the head. There's so much we can do that doesn't cost a lot of money, just sweeping and washing windows, keeping it clean. And so we're up for any suggestions on how we do that in a positive way to persuade people to do that. Yes, Paula.
You could go monthly and have them in the newspaper that they were the best. And then you can put one in there that says the least of and the best of.
I have a good idea. Hey, you just volunteered to be on our city beautification committee. But that, seriously, I think that might not be a bad idea, is to have a city beautification committee. And the people that would notice those things and suggest those awards to Roosevelt City, and we could get an award and we can get them in the paper. And that would give them some publicity for their business as well, and help with advertising. So, yes, Gary.
Yeah, Gary Rohr. My concern, really, what I've seen in the winter time is you got these snow plows that push all the snow up in front of these business owners, and when it sets up, you can't really dig it up. No place to park. You're trying to get a little runway there for somebody to come through. That hurts your businesses.
Sure.
It truly does. And I've seen a lot of cities where they push it to the center, and the city comes along and picks it up, puts it in a dump truck, and haul it off, so you don't have that.
Right.
That's something I think that Roosevelt City needs to look at doing to help the businesses on Main Street.
I agree, and you know what else really bothers me about that? The spalling on the cement because of the salt on in the, when they come and salt the roads and then push it up on there. It's hard because we're damaging our sidewalks, and then we have to end up replacing those, so that's tough.
Doesn't the city remove that snow like they do in Vernal?
You mean on the actual sidewalks?
No, on the, when they plow it off the road, and then there's all that snow there.
And how do they do that? Yeah,
They go into the lower.
We've thought about, there has been a discussion or a thought, maybe push that to the center, the turning lane, and then kind of
Just push it ahead of you.
we can look at that. That's a good,
How do you expect anybody to park and go into a business when there's snow in the park? So it would help all.
What concerns or what roadblocks are there, because Roosevelt City doesn't plow Highway 40, correct? That's the
yeah,
state.
DOT does, but DOT does the same thing in Vernal, so if they're doing, whatever they're doing, I mean, it's still something that we probably should look at. And I know that's a little off topic, but that's a good comment. Is it Lori?
Going back to talking about pride in the community, how many properties are not owned by people who live here? So those people don't even care.
Right.
And they can't, if they're renting it, their renters wouldn't want to put the money in front of the building.
And and so those are some of the thoughts that we've had, and maybe some people that we do cite or something like that, you know what I mean? And if we have to go and clean it, we'll send them a bill. We don't want to do that to the people that are really trying and working hard and that own their own place here, but the ones that it's just an investment property and it's sitting abandoned and they're not doing anything with it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know, but there's a lot of buildings that aren't even, there's a lot of empty buildings on Main Street.
Yeah.
So is part of this to bring in business, local businesses and to encourage them and to give them incentives to, there's a lot of little businesses and they're out there in trailers and getting.
Right.
If there could be some kind of a central place or something that they could, it would be affordable and we wouldn't have to pay $1,000 for them, they can.
Sure. Well, those are good thoughts and definitely things that we're taking into consideration as we get less. You're only allowed 3 comments.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I would like to see us to have some kind of storefront plan though. You end up with these porches, labs, all kinds of stuff which we have, which is not inviting. And if the committee would develop some kind of look or facade that we would like to see our faces have, and the things to use which other cities do, would help give direction. But then it would make, I think it'd be more tied together when they do something.
I agree, and that's what we're going for. So we do have a kind of a unified plan. Our main colors right now are purple and yellow is what we're going for downtown. And
Neon.
oh, this being recorded. But you're absolutely right. And so to get the funds to remodel your building or to use to do some improvements, it would have to conform to that plan. And that's what we're kind of getting at, but definitely a good point.
So, Mike Hawley, my name, and I, just a couple thoughts. I actually think it's a great idea. I think we're not talking about a tax increase on the public. What we're asking for, I think, is for buy-in from the county and the school district, probably most likely, to buy into this thought process of we're gonna improve Main Street, and then overall, everybody wins in the end when values go up. But I think we need to do something. Parking on Main Street, it's not inviting. It's actually very dangerous as you try to park on Main Street. There needs to be something done. And so I have two questions, I guess. One, how much of the current funds, the 800,000, is there a statute that some of that, how much of it has to go out in grant versus low interest loans? And then on the revolving fund, maybe this is a question for Cody, and I trust Cody because we work together on a lot of things, and I don't doubt his calculations, but there had to have been some assumptions made to come up with what revenue would be generated with that $5 million or whatever that number was. Maybe you could speak to what some of those assumptions were, and then how much of this goes out in grant versus loan and that sort of thing.
I'll speak to the first question, and then Cody, if you'll speak to the second one, is that okay? So the idea, and it's not set in stone, is to do a 50-50. So 400,000 grant, 400,000 loan. And again, obviously, the loan would be repaid through loan payments and a small interest, but the grant would be replenished in 50. So it may take a little longer, and then Cody, you can talk to that.
And just to follow up, no statutory, that's completely your prerogative.
Yeah.
Right, you can change that to 20,
Yeah,
60, it's totally up to you.
The split, yeah, it's just, that's something that we thought of going with now.
In terms of the calculation of the increment, basically that the historic growth along Main Street in terms of appreciation, and just assume that would be something similar going forward, so that new value would continue to increase.
So no big assumptions on the value of all the properties are going to increase, and that's a conservative estimate.
Yes. The last thing we want to do is make a huge assumption that 10 million is going to be generated, and literally it'll be 5. If it's 10, I'd love to be wrong in that direction.
And if it's 1, we would still be thrilled with that, to be honest. I mean, because it gets the ball moving. It gets us off center. It gets us going, moving, doing something. Any other questions? Those are all good questions. Now, any comments of how bad you hate it or like it? Mike, I appreciate the comment. Are there any that are totally against it? It's not a set in stone thing yet. It's just a discussion to get us moving and to actually form the district and then proceed. Are there any that are against it? And it's okay, yeah, we're not going to be offended. Are there any that would like to speak for it that haven't spoken already?
Well, first of all, Irene Hansen. I am a Duchesne County Commissioner. I'm not here to speak for the commission, but certainly it is okay for me to speak as a commissioner. And that is, I do think one of the things that, of course, everybody got their tax notices. And so, we've probably gotten about 50 people that have reached out to us about the escalating values. And we all know that Part of that happened because of COVID, part of it because we got discovered. Part of it's remote work. We have computer scientists living here. Now my son moved out here, a software engineer, and now there's 2 other people from his company that have moved to Roosevelt because of the lower price homes and just a lot available. And so, we have been discovered, which means that we've seen our home prices and values go up astronomically with no improvements. My home over the last 5 years has gone up $200,000 and I've made no improvements whatsoever. So I think that, commercial is being reevaluated this next year or 2, so in 2024, 2025. And so that is and we are going to see escalated values. Now, Duchesne County has not raised its Duchesne County has not raised its certified tax rate for over 15 years. So we have not gone to truth and taxation for over 15 years. We are only guaranteed what we got last year. We don't get extra for value. So the other taxing entities have raised and have taken additional value. Duchesne County has not. We are guaranteed that, and that's only about 1/3 of our revenue streams. The rest is soft money. But that is the only what you call hard guaranteed money is property tax. And I'm sure the city would be very close to the same. Sales tax and other things that are not guaranteed revenue streams. So if I have any concern that I am for the businesses, because I've taken a lot of calls from them over the years. I did economic development for Duchesne County for 25 years. And I knew whenever the assessor reevaluated commercial, because I would get very zealous, concerned, and frustrated phone calls from businesses that really had done nothing to improve, but their taxes went up 25 or 30%. So if the county's certified tax rate stays the same, and it will unless we go to truth and taxation, if it stays the same, but somebody's value goes up an additional 25%, which we are seeing that, then that taxing entity will at that point kick in to take that growth. But I think we need to be fair and very transparent that it could mean additional taxes. Because right now, there's no one to capture that. In fact, one of the people that called and chewed me out said, my house raised $50,000 this year. I was gonna call and chew you out, so I decided to call anyway, even after I saw that your certified tax rate dropped because of the additional value. We are only allowed what we got last year. So we're not allowed to take that extra appreciation unless we go to truth and taxation. And every taxing entity is the same. Roosevelt City has to do the same. But now with this additional taxing entity on top of it, the CRA, they would be able to tax on that appreciated value. So let's take, for example, if we have the corner coffee shop that 5 years ago appraised at $300,000, this year it's appraised for $350,000. Duchesne County is still only going to be able to, the certified tax rate will drop to whatever it needs to so that they pay Duchesne County. Now, we're not talking school district, we're not talking all the other taxing entities, but what they pay Duchesne County is going to stay the same. But if there is that additional taxing entity, they will pay more when they see their value go up.
Okay, and I didn't understand it that way. Cody, maybe we'll have to run this by you, but Irene, thank you for that comment, by the way. Appreciate that. One of the things that, as you were speaking, I was thinking is that your certified tax rate, so what you're saying, the certified tax rate that you charge is what you charge across the county, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't adjust for each individual.
Well, no, it doesn't adjust for each individual.
Okay.
Now, there is different things in place that how commercial is handled and how centrally assessed is handled. Duchesne County is the #1 centrally assessed county in the state of Utah. Those are businesses like the big oil companies that cross county lines.
Yeah.
And so, so for an example, 3 years ago, our certified tax rate was 0.00035. 0.00035. Last year, because of the exploding values, our certified tax rate dropped to 0.00027, and automatically. And then this year, because of the increased exploding, again, more value and increased sales in homes and the values exploding, our recommended certified tax rate will be 0.00025. So it keeps dropping so that we don't get any more unless we go to truth and taxation. We have not done that for 15 years, and to be honest with you, there'll probably come a point when we do need to. But we haven't done that.
Yeah, does your tax rate fluctuate yearly, or is it just depending on?
Only to keep us at the same amount. Our same amount that has come in has been about 7 million. The only thing we can't take growth, as you might think of value in homes. What we can take is if a new home is built on the Neola Highway. And so they look at that and say, okay, Duchesne County, you've got a new place that you have to provide fire service to, that you have to provide sheriff service to. So then we are allowed to take that additional property, but not additional value on the existing properties.
So can you help explain that to, do you understand what Irene is saying? Okay. And so how would that apply to our agency, and how does that work? Because we don't want to misrepresent what's going on. So how would that work?
So I don't want to say the word correct, but I think it's maybe stated differently, is this board is not levying a tax. You're not, the RDA board does not have authority to levy a tax.
Right.
And specifically in this tool, the CRA, you do not have the authority to levy a tax. So there's no certified tax rate involvement at this board's level.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not an additional layer of tax. So you wouldn't see an increase from the certified tax implications. So I don't believe that would be in play here. You would see, for example, the CRA, when it's created, there's a very complicated formula to figure out what your certified rate is to keep you revenue neutral, which is what the Commissioner's talking about. If your budget for property tax is $50,000 and your property values go up by a third, your tax rate will go down by a third. That's the simple version,
Right.
but you have to take into account what's the collection rate. You never collect 100%. People are always telling you that, so you have to factor that in, and you also have to factor in if a CRA comes into your taxing entity, then that's pulled out of the new portion is pulled out of the base. So it will have a minor impact
On the base.
but a very minor, because we're talking about Main Street in Roosevelt versus the entire county.
And that's what I was thinking too. So it would actually, Irene, instead of raising their taxes, it would actually, so if you're collecting, and that's kind of how I understood it too, and that's why I wanted to make sure, if you're collecting 7 million in taxes, let's say, and we do this, then if that, whatever, let's say it raised 5%, and so your
Certified
tax rate drops proportionately, that still 5% would come to the CRA, and so it would actually dip into your budget. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you would adjust slightly your tax rate, and then the whole county would raise a very, very small amount to account for.
Oh, okay, so it
the
wouldn't dip
new
into the
value.
budget.
Yeah, it would dip into the budget. It would modify the tax rate. And, you know, when you think of
Quadruple O, whatever.
yeah, it would be like so minor that it would be budget dust is what I would call that. It is just very, 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 very minor.
So and I really appreciate the clarification. So if if, let's say, a store, is worth 300,000, the new appraisal value is 350.
Yeah.
We lower our certified tax rate so that the tax stays the same. That difference in growth would not go to the CRA, it would go.
It would go.
So the business would be taxed higher than it would have been
No.
without the Duchesne, that I don't understand.
But the hard part is saying,
It's an
my
average
business is
across
worth
the county.
350, that, you know, the business by business example is where you can get lost. We're gonna look at the entire value of the county, $1 billion, whatever it is. It's probably close to that. It's a lot of money. And we're going to take out whatever the appreciation is on Main Street, which is probably $1 million. So you'll see in that case, what, 0.001%.
But I'm not worried about the implications to the county
But
as much as I am as the implication for the
yeah,
business.
and I appreciate that because it will also, the only tax increase you'll see from a CRA being implemented, the only one you'll see, holding all things constant, is by pulling out that value, your certified rate will go up by 0.001%. So if my business was worth 300,000 this year and now it's appraised, no new growth,
No
just
improvement.
totally just appraised higher, the certified tax rate will go, and assuming that happens across the entire county, it'll go, the certified rate will go down slightly, right, to account for that. And then we'll have to bump up by 0.001% probably to account for the fact that we pulled out a portion of the new value and put it in the CRA.
So what he's saying is the business itself is not gonna feel that, it's going to be an average across the county and it's going to be absorbed.
Yeah.
And if you absorb it across an average of the county, it's
less than that bottle of water that you're drinking. It's gonna be so minor that you won't even notice it.
So that will be spread to every county resident.
Yes. Yes, and the same with the city as the tax.
Oh, sure,
community,
that we
and
are
the same with the school district, and the same with the other participating agencies. It'll be so minor.
good comment. Yes.
I have a question.
Terry Rohr.
Terry Rohr. My question is, because all that stuff goes way over my head, so I want to get down to something that I understand. Have you thought about what the criteria will be, how you determine whether it is a grant or a loan or how that's going to work?
That hasn't been defined, yet, it will have to conform to our downtown plan, obviously, but we haven't set that up yet as far as the detail. We would like participation, we'd like participation from the RBA, we'd like participation from the business owners in that area, and to help this isn't a decision tonight that we make and then we're going to implement it next month. This is do we like the idea? Move in the right direction? And if so, let's detail all of those things, because it really won't affect anything yet until everything's finalized. This is basically just to establish that and start moving forward. But that criteria would be defined, and we would want input. We want assistance with that from many people who want to be involved. Obviously, as we go through that, we'll have public meetings and even committees, not always in council, but just committees that would be also public. We come together and discuss those things and make sure the vision that we want to fulfill in this is your vision, not necessarily our vision. And so we want as much participation as we can because we want it to be a community thing. We want it, when the end result, we want all of us that live here to be proud of it and have ownership in it.
Do you have anybody like an architect or whatever that would have input as to what would look good?
We have some designs.
Some designs?
And we don't have them tonight, I don't believe, but we have had some designs. They were done in 2019, and so they're rough. And I think they need to be updated, and it was again just a shot in the dark. But we do have some of those designs, and we can, I think the best thing to do once we get. What's that? Oh, they are on the website.
On what website? Roosevelt City?
RooseveltCity.com.
Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you.
But they're not set in stone.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? And it doesn't mean that, yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
I'm Clyde Watkins.
Mayor Clyde Watkins.
You know, probably in some of this, I'm not sure that as some of the sponsoring agencies, maybe it would be needing to have input. As you said, on their own work and your discussions, I'm not sure that you would really got enough information. So really, for us to make any kind of really logical decision, I mean, something would have to go back to a board. Something would have to go back to, I'm sure, well, in the school district would be a board, central would be a board, mine would be a board, county would be the commission. But I think something needs to take place there in June before I can give you a lot of input. Sure. That you're gonna need back. My thing for that when you said it earlier, you know, maybe be willing to change the size of it a little bit if you come to my district. My district's gonna look at it and say something and be like, okay, why so big? What about a smaller park? Maybe it just worry about the old. I'm just using an example. Come to them and do what you need to do. I'm not gonna give them information. Maybe it's like, why aren't you just looking at a small portion of Main Street, the old portion of Main Street? Why are you looking at all? But maybe something's gonna have to. A lot of discussion needs to take place, and then you need to come to them.
Sure. And Cody, if we approve this tonight to move forward, it doesn't mean that that's set in stone. And so this really just basically gives the agency the ability to start moving forward and having those discussions.
And I'm just encouraging you to start those discussions probably quickly, because I think a lot of us came more to try to say, okay, give us some information to take back to our people.
Yeah. And we'd love to have meetings with each organization, and I'm confident that we'll probably need more than one meeting with each organization, right? So, to discuss these things and just dial it in and see what everybody's comfortable with. And so, we would definitely.
But you'll probably look at it and say, well, geez, them guys don't have any questions. Well, we really can't have any questions because
sure.
we really don't know how to do that.
And that's a good comment. And I think that's wise. And so, yeah, this is definitely something we, you know, if we approve the agency tonight to move forward, then immediately we'd start those discussions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're more than happy to kind of meet with everyone. Yeah. Finals more here to hear from the rest of the public, but coming with you on the individual and talk about it.
Good. Well, we've had a lot of discussion. We spent a little over an hour on this, and rightfully so. This is a sensitive topic and a sensitive subject. I appreciate everybody's comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to it one way or the other? We want to make sure we're thorough. This is anytime we're talking taxing, anything. It's a big thing. Okay, seeing no other comments, do we have any comments by the council? Any thoughts that come to your minds?
I think all my questions have been answered.
Well, this is not something that was just thought up of in the last couple of weeks. The plans that they mentioned that are on the website, they've been available to us at least a year, maybe longer. 3 years. So we just haven't known how to really get the ball rolling, or haven't had everything together. So this is not something we're just trying to hurry and do. We want it to be done right if we're going to do it.
Thanks for that comment. And that is true, yes.
Just say, if anybody from the public has further questions or talks to somebody that has questions, please have them reach out to the city staff. We're happy to answer those questions. This is all about getting information out. So please follow up with your neighbors, friends, anybody that has questions, let us know. We'd love to If we don't have the answer right there, we can get a hold of Cody, we can get you the answers, but yeah, we want this to be something where everybody understands along the process, so please reach out. We want to make sure we're communicating that.
Yes, Chair.
Something we can find on your website.
May I
show them how to get to it?
Yes, please.
So it's fairly simple, it's rooseveltcity.com, under the residents tab, Main Street revitalization plans. That will open the PDF that was created in 2019.
And keep in mind that these are outdated to a degree. We'll need to update these.
So you'll be able, you probably saw me scrolling through those. That's where you can find that. We also have a page, just to go back so I can have your attention, I'm gonna take advantage of it. And I will put a link to that there, but under transparency, that's the goal of this project, right? We have that Main Street Reinvestment Area proposal, and that's where all of the information that we have thus far has been published. Anything new will live there as well. So you can always reference that at home or from your smartphone.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Seeing no other comment, would entertain a motion to move back into the regular session or convene as we have to make a motion as a redevelopment agency. So is there a motion one way or the other to approve or not approve the project area and plan and budget for the redevelopment? And obviously it's tentative.
I'll make the motion that we move forward with this RDA, with the plan. The tentative plan, or is that how I'm supposed to say it?
Yes, please, will you?
So we need a motion, if you want to move forward, we would need a motion to approve the project area plan for the Main Street Community Reinvestment Project. And we also need a motion to approve adopting the budget resolution for the Main Street Community Reinvestment Project.
And Grant, because of the comments that we've heard, we don't want people to think that this is a final budget or a final plan. And so it would be subject to review and subject to change. I think it would be fair in that motion, but move forward with it and obviously subject to change. Is that okay? Yeah. Does that make sense?
So moved.
Yeah. So a motion to approve the project, area plan and budget, subject to change based on information from the taxing entities.
Yep, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Cloward. All right, we'll do a roll call on this one because it is just to cover our bases. Councilman Busenbark, are you still with us?
Yeah, I.
Okay. Councilman White?
Aye.
Councilman Baird?
Aye.
Councilman Cloward?
Aye.
And Councilman Allen? Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Now, did that cover both the budget and the plan? Do you need a second motion, or did that cover both?
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, perfect. All right. Now we'll go ahead and recess as the redevelopment agency and would entertain a motion to convene as Roosevelt City Council.
A motion. Second.
Motion by Councilman Howard and a second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll consider ourselves back in regular session. Boy, that was fun. Thanks for all for being here tonight. And you can stick around for the rest of the meeting. I know that we've got some exciting things to talk about.
Cheers. You'll have to guess what mine is.
It's good. So the ICAC.
Yeah, you see that. See it.
Absolutely.
No, I didn't. I thought about it. See, no, he'll return the favor in some other meeting, so we'll go. No, going out later. Jason. Yeah, that's true. He's got that crazy.
See, okay, Grant, go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Just real quick explanation for anybody who's not familiar with gas bans. ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children. It's law enforcement entity with the state. The MOU, as I've explained to you before, is memorandum of understanding. These can be contracts, but they're not always. This is one that's not. It's just reducing to writing what each side is going to do. Each side being the Roosevelt City Police Department. There's nothing in here that would be binding on us. It really is just clarifying for the police department. This is the same MOU that we've used in the past. I've reviewed all of it. It's just a renewal. That's my recommendation.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman White. Second by Councilman Bauer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Don. I'll hesitate a little more. Sorry about that. I almost stepped on you. All right, thanks, Graham. Procurement resolution items. So we've had some discussion with our procurement policy as of late, just to make sure that we understand it correctly. There has been some discussion. I don't know that we're in a position to have a general discussion on it or the APR tonight, but
We just wanted to put on council's radar that we have it by resolution right now. We need to have it by ordinance. So we'll be working with Grant as we look at our procurement policy. We just want to give council an update that we will need to change that to an ordinance. That's all.
thank you. And if you need a copy of that, if we want to change anything in the procurement policy or make any modifications, and you need a copy of what our current policy is, Sunshine, would you mind just sending that out to us so that we can be looking at that, so that we can have a general discussion the next time? And before we codify it, then we can make any of those adjustments at that time. APR request. I was wondering why you were here. Goodness.
Well, they put frisbee golf. And I'll try to make it brief. I think there's some angry engineers behind me that take too long.
We're never here.
No, no. See, Sunshine, do you have an email for the proposed course we're looking at? While people in what we're looking at tonight is we're making a proposal to extend the course at Constitution Park. Currently is at a 7-hole course up on the upper part. We're looking to put 2 baskets in the lower section and moving one from the top and bringing it down. If we don't have the map pulled up, I have one right here. I can show you guys, but we'll see if we can get one pulled up over there. What we're looking at this, we're following the direction we're getting and the feedback on our UDISC app. So that's an app anyone can use and they get feedback and come find our courses. A lot of the feedback we're getting on here is hoping to have a full 9 holes over there. Really harsh feedback. It wasn't harsh. It says good practice course, not recommended for experienced players. We don't want to be seeing that kind of feedback on our courses because this is a great place for people to stop in. And what we're garnering here now is a destination for one of fastest growing sports. And so we'll have our 9 holes. We are working on Teddy's Playground as well. And the reason I bring this to you now is we're making an order for those baskets at Teddy's Playground. Because it's a bigger order, we get discounted price. Right now, we can get $400 per basket. They're usually about $500. And that price has gone up. When we first put in the baskets in the upper part, it was about $350 per basket. And that wasn't discounted either. So, we're gonna be seeing those prices go up. The two that we're proposing are hole 1 and 2, would be new baskets down in the lower section. And we've been bringing one of them down from the top and bringing it down to the hole 9, and I put 2 possible destinations there. Now, these are open investment as far as where the baskets can go, but that would be our 9-hole layout, with the added 2 baskets down in the trees.
Does hole 3 exist right now?
Hole 3 does, yes.
And then you said 9 does or does not exist?
9 does not exist.
So when you say 7 hole, I mean, I'm just doing simple math.
Yeah, you
But
take one of the 7. We take one of the 7 and bring it down to take the 3 that would be in the bottom section. Because there are 7 currently on the top part, and we would take 1 from there, bring it down, and add 2 more down in the trees in the lower section. And we have a position like we do, so hole 1, when you're throwing, it's in that big thicket of trees. Reason being there, we want to avoid anything going towards the playground or the pavilion on the other side. And from experience, it's quite hard to actually try to get to the playground. I'd say you're a very low chance of getting over there. And then we've got, from throwing to hole 2, you're positioned on that sidewalk, you're throwing to there, you're throwing away from the pavilion or the bathrooms. And we've got it set up so even inexperienced players, when they don't throw as far. It's going to be going, it could go any which direction.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a smaller throw. So it's not going to be going as errant, and it usually goes up and hyzers back down to the left. So that's why we have it angled that way. Even if they're going towards the bathroom, they're not getting enough power, and their second shot will be still going away from that pavilion. And with future events, we've thought about this. These baskets can be taken out. So the car show, for example, I think you guys need as much space as you can down there. We would go down and take those baskets out for any of those big events. So there's more room, and it's easy enough to take those baskets out and put them back in. Hole 9 would be the one, I prefer the one that doesn't say alternate on it, because you're shooting away from the stage. You throw down, and you're kind of going towards that grass right there. Nice, thank you. Sunshine is my laser pointer. Oh, okay. So that's what we're looking at to fill that. As far as cost, we're sitting really well. For Teddy's Playground, we've raised about $16,000 so far to cover our $23,000 budget. So a lot of that will recoup what we were going to take from the grant budget to do this. And so we've already got an approval from the APR committee to move forward this. We just need your guys' vote to see if this is something you'd like to do.
Any questions from council?
I know we've discussed, this seems familiar. I think we've had this discussion a couple times. So I'd just like to know what the parks guys, because I know you guys have been a little hesitant about it. How are you feeling about it now?
Yeah, we've actually, this has been brought up a couple of times now, and we are not against the Frisbee disc golf. It's been a good thing. I commend what Preston did. Yeah, but from the get-go, we were always concerned of having an exclusive Frisbee disc golf because of the high activities, the high multi-use activities that go on at this park. We're really concerned with that area. And I'm afraid of all the activity that go down in those trees. That's where people go to eat lunch. That's where they pay to reserve the pavilions. And they just don't use the pavilion, they use the area around it as well, to have birthday parties and whatnot. And especially going across where the restroom building is at, going across that field as well, that's where we utilize soccer fields. And you can go right across the soccer as well. There's a lot of different activities going on. And, especially just really concerned with the high usage of that area. I have lots of concerns and I'm close of this direction.
I'm kind of with Dustin on this as we're getting more and more activities happening at the park. I just see this being a little bit of a concern and interfering with some of those activities. I would really like to see the focus be on Teddy's Playground, which Preston mentioned, and really kind of be that our disc golf focus area. especially for those really skilled and even novice, where they can go and be out there and throw freely without having to worry about people walking through or interrupting their games.
Yes, also.
Go ahead.
That's just kind of why our former recreation director, introduced that 120 acres out there, was because if they want it more difficult, that's great. Let's put them out there. They have 120 acres. It's going to be a full 18-hole disc golf, and they can make it as difficult as they want, you know. But we just need to keep in mind the high use that this park gets. We need to be smart, and that's just where I think we need to be smart. I think it's not the best place for them.
I know I've had conversations with both sides, and I lean towards obviously just, you know, in caution and having that a multi-use area. And then also thinking that Debbie's Playground is, hopefully this would be a starter course for people that would come and get introduced to the sport, and then Debbie's Playground would be the place where they actually go and show off their skill.
Absolutely, and I think we have to look at it. Just golfers like ball golfers, there's someone in the way, they're not gonna shoot the hole. Or they wait for the hole to be cleared. Those kind of standards follow through with disc golf as well. This isn't, you know, reckless endangerment throwing discs when there's people that are as good as I think I've gotten, I'm not gonna throw them all. All people are in the way. However, when we're talking about teddies and getting this to a 9-hole course as well, we look at the benefit of seeing we've got an 18-hole course and a 9-hole course in the remote area of Roosevelt. It's about also the people who come specifically to go play another course and come to the town and use the things that we've got.
Just a comment. I took my family on vacation, I think, to Colorado, Glenwood Springs area. And maybe it wasn't there. Maybe it was up in Idaho. I can't remember. Anyway, we're on vacation and we were just walking along a stream, and there was like a disc golf tournament going on. And the players weren't super nice to our family about walking through the area because they were having a tournament. So that's the only thing that comes to my mind on this, is just, is it going to be used for tournaments? We can't always guarantee people are going to be nice, because if it is a designated disc golf course and then they're having a soccer game, I don't know. Or somebody comes and sets up a soccer net there just because they want to practice.
Sure.
Then I don't know.
Usually with parks, if you go to Wasatch Run, they're designated public parks. Any disc golfers who go there gotta go and understand all people who are there have the right way of whatever activities going on.
Okay.
Taylorsville has them, Holiday, it's called Creekside, there's Regional Valley. I mean, if you go watch them, they're all public parks. This wouldn't designate it as a disc golf.
Okay. And neither was the one that we got.
Is it the 7 holes that's the problem? That they want 9, or is it the degree of difficulty of courses?
It's not the degree of people, it's a great, actually, this location for this golf course is unique because we have the hills, we have the trees. Makes it really fun, ready to play. What you have happening with the 7 holes up there, we can get by, but you actually create a little bit more danger for the disc golf players because of the crossing. So you're crossing your path, you're playing a lot. So you are waiting, and a smart player will wait and see if there's someone ahead of them. But we have a lot of families using it up there. It's becoming popular. We have our play counts through March, April, May, June. We had 100, 151, 155, and that's recorded on UDIS. That's not the families who will just playing there. And the unique players we've had so far, that's out of Roosevelt, so they have that area codes for people who want to use it. We average about 30 players a month coming outside Roosevelt to play the course.
And then I'm just curious, it's been up there maybe 2 years, something like that. Have there been any complaints from anybody
About 2 years, 3 years? 2.5. 2.5.
Yeah. No, I think especially where the area is at right now on that west side doesn't get utilized a lot, so it's been a perfect location. And keeping those 7 baskets right there, it's been pretty good because there's not a lot of other activities going on right there. So it's been a perfect spot, like I said. And they've done a good job there. But then now that we're moving over to the high use area, that's where you're gonna get a lot of complaints, people having lunch. People go down there to the pavilions at birthday parties, the playground is right there as well, so. We haven't had too many complaints, you know, we've kind of had a few times where we can't mow that lunchtime when there's people coming in to use that, because they just throw their gifts, they don't even care. So we have to stop mowing at 12, you know, for lunchtime, because they've almost hit us, so, but.
You can mow through and yell at them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make cages for that. Yeah, they do make cages.
Yeah. My only comment, to what you were saying as far as the more experienced ones throwing and being more courteous, my fear isn't the experienced ones, it's the inexperienced ones that go and want to play there. They don't know the etiquette, and they don't know, you know, they're not very skilled, and so we can't really control who's going to play there when we get all skill levels, and so I think we need to take that into consideration as we're looking at that.
And I think that's a leap forward we have to take with this, is understanding we'll have, if with that, some growing pains with the new guys. We want to implement this as a sport, so we have courses that will hit all skill levels, but we're accommodating to, and for me, we're finishing up on that course. So we don't have a 7 basket up top. It's a finished product, and it would not extend beyond anything on this.
Until next time.
No, no. There's enough work that there is too.
I think the first or second time we brought it up, but we tried to find different ways to go around and just couldn't find the room up in the trees, right? Because there were some suggestions from Brent to go kind of down by by field 5.
Well, beforehand, when we proposed it, we were talking about using that parking strip.
Yeah, and I just remember there were a couple different iterations of it.
Yeah.
We never could find anything that actually worked.
And unfortunately, you had a bad experience with disc golfers.
Yeah, it's like the only experience we've had, and they've been really impatient. But so,
As you're thinking, my biggest concern is just that's the most utilized area in the park. I think Dustin's right. If they're on the west side, I don't see very many people using that, and it's an absolute perfect spot for something like this, because now it's being used.
Now,
My
we have
biggest
to
concern
consider
is
with
just the
the
trees, that's where everybody wants to be, because of the shade and everything else.
the shade and everything else, and then that lower part, if you think about how fast disc golf goes. I mean, we make it sound like they're gonna take over the whole area, but you play.
Pickleballers did.
You play this whole I mean, you play through, they'll be out of that area within 10 minutes tops.
so would they, so say somebody is traveling through and they come in and they're wanting to play a nine-hole course, and then there's kids there and they're picnicking, and then there's people playing soccer and stuff.
So I can tell you, if there's a soccer game going on, they would skip that.
Okay.
You don't play a whole discussion.
So I could just see similar types of comments end up on the website saying, you know, that 9-hole course, but we can only play 5 of them because the park's too busy or something.
And honestly, in most parks, you won't see that feedback. Because they go and they know this is a public park.
Okay.
My comment was going to be for hole number 3, if there was a concern about throwing across that, I don't know, would it make any difference if the spot by the bathroom was moved up to the corner of the pavilion and you just threw along the back end of that?
You totally could. Yeah.
That way it would be less over the top of any other activities.
Yeah, and actually, if you're shooting that way, most players are backhand players, so you're going to be going away from those fences.
Then the other thing is, because of your comments about how these disc golf courses often are in public use areas, if Salt Lake can do it or somebody else can do it, we can do it in Roosevelt.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm not saying that there aren't concerns. I don't want to take away from the concerns that people have shown, but I think we should do it because of the feedback you got from people that are coming to utilize it. And if they like it, but it's just, you know, a good practice course or, you know, but you need a little bit more, we should try to make it as good as we can and try to eliminate whatever safety concerns we can, and then there. But I like it. I think in the future this could potentially keep gaining momentum, and we could have a lot of people come to Roosevelt just for this sport.
And this offers travel. And you start to put pins and they see that there's multiple courses in one area, they'll make the trip. We're also looking at putting in, the Point has put in a 9-hole course at their public park. They got approval to put one in over there.
Does Vernal have a course yet?
No. Yeah. Well, you have one, but it's 3 baskets. And so most Vernal players are traveling to Roosevelt to come play. And so if you want to look at this too, the Point has a park that's, so I don't know if you guys been to the Point Park. They put in a 9-hole. Of course, they just got approval, we'll put it over there.
Talking to Councilman White's point, hole number 1, is there any way to go on the north edge of that? It seems like the same, close to the same distance, but would eliminate the crossplay. And then I'm
Well,
also
are you talking hole 1? Because there's no cross.
Just over the top of other people in the park.
All in this direction, so that you're not thrown right through the middle of the park.
Oh, you mean the hole 2? You could switch that up. Hole 1 right there.
I'm just looking at the distance. It's probably the same length.
And you could even shorten up, we could even shorten up the tee pad from where it's at the hole 2, saying, and kind of move forward. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff can be adjusted where you throw.
Our staff is most concerned about is, I've seen that area pretty busy,
But at the same time, that area can also be
pretty empty.
I mean, it can go both ways on that. But if we can definitely adjust the tee pads, this was a draft of where those could go. Hole 1's pretty easy. You're not cross playing on much of things that are going over there. Hole 2, yeah, you could switch that tee pad. I think Justin wouldn't like it, it's too close to the pavilion if people were using it, which I would agree. So you can move it around and possibly even moving, it's like, over here. You could put it shooting from here, going across, so you're taking away that sidewalk. You're away from the pavilion, but this way. So you can put it where you need to. And I mean, me personally, when I go and play, there's people that I love to interact with. I don't know how many discs I've given away with people who were just there and they were courteous and say, hey, thanks for waiting for us, here's this, or hey, come join us if you'd like. It's a growing sport. We want to get people out doing it. And we're also hoping in the future with this, these playgrounds, start some youth leagues and different things that we can get into the schools as well.
So my question is it sounds like, with Councilman White's suggestion, do you see that resolves any of your concerns?
Not really, because you can't guarantee everybody's gonna be like very, courteous and he understands, but you can't guarantee somebody's, they don't know the rules and stuff like that. And especially if you're going across that soccer field, even, the idea was all along that north side. That's where the goals get up. It's a big field, it's for the older kids. So you're taking away we utilize so many different sports and so many different activities.
Of course, if the goals are there, you're not going to be throwing.
Yeah, you're not taking it away. That's we play around. We wouldn't play it.
Yeah, and I'm not there. The hard thing for me is I lean towards trusting our staff, obviously, because I'm not there. But, there's some benefit to it as well. It's just.
Is there a way we could do like a trial run with some temporary baskets. You know, test it for a month and see if we have any complaints or.
I think you can get removable. They're all removable.
They're all removable, yeah.
You'd have to put the cement stand in though.
Yeah.
Another thought is the strip of grass next to the parking lot on the east, is that big enough to put one in? Because that probably isn't utilized by lots of people.
Oh, you totally could.
And so maybe move one or two, get 1 and 2 out of that area, put one there and try to figure out something else. But I think we should try to address the concerns that have been made, but find a way to get the 9 holes. Whether we put it, I don't want to just let it die because there's some concerns. I want to figure
So
it
would
out.
it be a
I
good
like the
idea
idea of
to
the removable.
put in we put in some temporary baskets, lay out the course like this for a couple months and come back to this, in fall?
Yeah, I think, I really like the idea of, you know, temporary stuff, putting it out there, trying it out, making adjustments if needed, and until people feel like this is something we can do, you know, and deal with, and, because I do think we need to listen to staff too, but I think more than anything, like, if this will bring people to Roosevelt, and if the citizens in Roosevelt like the idea of having a 9-hole golf course, I mean, it's, of course, gonna be,
It'll have growing pains.
Yeah, it'll have growing pains, because the people come and rent the pavilion and they're paying money, and then they run into a confrontation with somebody that's playing Frisbee golf, they're not gonna be happy either, so it's but I like the idea of doing a trial run, bringing in some temporary baskets and moving them around, see what we can figure out.
Yeah, by listing pads, moving our best locations.
I'd like to see if we did a trial run that if it did become a problem, that we definitely follow up and make sure that, you know, and make sure that everybody knows it is a trial run.
I noticed for some of your tournaments, you use field 5, that's out of the question over there. Making something more. That's the field on the north, ball field.
I mean, I feel like we're worried about going across the soccer field that's used.
It seems like you guys are going around the outside of it. I don't know. I've seen some temporary ones set up there.
Yeah, you go around the outside. I mean, we're trying to avoid running and crossing any sports. So that's why we kept it in here. I mean, we didn't want to go outside those bounds. I mean, you totally could. I mean, you don't give us leeway to start playing more holes. Let's all just go with that.
Does the city own the property that make it watch to the east there? No?
No, for sale.
Yeah.
It gets fun.
Well, we've fundraised a lot so far, but we've got the baskets covered, and we got a lot of the mountain bike trail covers, so we put in a lot of time to try to get money so we can save it in rec for other things as well, which I'll be coming for September City Council.
So what does it cost to put 2 baskets in?
So it would cost, without the discount, it would be about $1,000 for 2 baskets. Because we're gonna get them, it'll cover the discount and the shipping. We're saving about $300. So we want to put it in the order, because we want to put that order on soon so we can start putting some more baskets in place, but we're okay. I don't know, we're okay to wait. Well, maybe in that order, what we could do in that order is ask if 2 of them can have temporary stands put in with the wheels on them. So we can have those out there, test it out, put in our new layout on UDisc, and then we'd be able to see what happens with it. If we'd rather see a trial run, go with that. But so we can make that order. We would just have 2 of those baskets have the temporary stands put on them instead of the sleeve that's put in with concrete. Like the sleeve stays in, but you can take out the whole basket.
Right. Well, that sounds reasonable. I think we spent enough time on this. I don't think there's a lot of comments unless the staff have any other comments. Does council have any other questions or comments?
Maybe with that trial, let's try that east side, like that strip.
That strip there?
Yeah, the very east side, like if we could even get away from the tree area and just that east side, maybe that would work better. Like, because Yeah, east or east side strip.
Well, and it's something that we could massage, it's something that we could look at, and if it's not working, then we just don't do it, but Grant, you have some comments.
I have liability concerns in the tree area. So if you're gonna do a trial run, I would recommend that you not do it where hole 1 and 2 are drawn right now. Put them either where one of you pointed out earlier to the north of 3 or down on the east side, but to stay out of the tree area.
Hey, Mayor, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can't see the map or where things are. I'm just curious how USU fits into this, because I understood, well, thank you. I understood that you were also trying to put some down at USU. Is that true? I know there's at least 1 or 2 down there.
Yeah, they're looking at the possibility of expanding their 3 tonight as well. Which would be great, because again, the more dots you have on that map, the more people you're gonna have come visiting all those dots to check out.
So this, your proposal or suggestions here doesn't relate to USU though, what's down there.
No, this is to finish off Parsons full 9.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Tom. Well, if there's no other comment, we've got other things that we need to discuss, and so, you know, do we have a motion one way or the other? Do we want to table it? Any thoughts?
I do table it.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Do we have another motion?
I'll do an alternative motion to approve doing 2 temporary baskets and working with the park staff to determine locations for those.
Okay, we have a second motion on the floor. Do we have any other thoughts or any other motions?
I second Dave's motion.
Okay, we have a second to Dave's motion. We'll go ahead and vote on Dave's motion first. Let's do a roll call so it's cleaner. Councilman White?
Aye.
Councilman Barrett?
Aye.
Councilman Cloward?
Aye.
Councilman Allen?
Aye.
And Councilman Busenbark?
I'll support that and rescind my motion.
Okay, my motion passes, and so we'll go ahead and move forward with getting with staff and looking at placing a couple of temporaries out there and seeing if we can make something work.
Great, I'm sorry this took so long. Take
Oh,
credit for your effort.
You know what? Glad to see these things come to our area for sure. We want to make sure that we're being cautious and protecting.
No, absolutely.
You know, all of our
We have you
citizens.
have different experience.
Backup generators discussion solicitation approval.
Mayor, City Council, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yes, I was asked to look into maybe some grant money to get a backup generator for the building. We have the SHSP grant that law enforcement gets. We usually get 20,000 that goes to law enforcement stuff. But they also have emergency stuff that we can get bigger projects approved. So I went to the meeting and I asked if we could do it, and it's free. So, but they need to know how much it's gonna be. A couple of years ago, I got with Dean, and a couple of years ago, they looked into doing this already. They had an engineering company come out and take a look. They had Dean, and they had an electrician come out. And they decided that it would probably be best out here by the police department, either right next to the transfer box that's out there, or even more east by where, past the Sally Port where we park. But they had looked into it, and they'd hired an engineering company to plan it all out. What we're asking for tonight is to get the plans for this engineering company, to get the plans to do it, and then after that, we can put a bid out once people know exactly what needs to be done. And that's what this company is, and it's about $6,500. And what I think about it is, I think the building definitely needs a generator. We had an incident not too long ago where everything's on a power door lock and hardly anybody can get in, and we need a generator. And I think once we did this bid, even if we decided we didn't get the grant, but we decided maybe there was some other money in the future, we could still use these plans because they're specific to the building. And well, I don't know where the money was gonna come from. I hope the police department comes.
There is some funding that's been budgeted for buildings and grounds for various projects. I think that that's where we look, that there probably could be something that comes from that. Of course, that would take away from anything else that might come up that needs to be done for the buildings and grounds.
Is $6,500 the commitment?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. If they have to come out and take a look, there's some additional money. That's just.
My personal opinion is, I think it's a good idea, something that, sorry, we should have probably done a while ago.
We found out that it actually was in the original building plans, but they cut.
Yeah.
That original building plan with the wiring, I guess you'd have to retrofit at this point, right?
Up to retrofit, right, they cut it out before they did like, have it all ready to go.
Any other questions or thoughts on that? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve or not approve.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Any other discussion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Allen, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thanks. Appreciate that. Next. Oh, man. Can we just table this one too? Sports complex change orders. Who wants to lead out the discussion on that?
Thank you, Mayor. So here we have our sports complex coming forward, and we'll get your summary sheet of our capital project on this later. But we have a $3.5 million budget that we have for this. We have quite a few change orders. These have come from basically all the different conversations we have. It's not from one individual. It's not just the engineers. It's not staff. It's not council. It's everything that could be considered. There are quite a few change orders on here that are being proposed. We met last week with Councilman Allen was there, staff and our engineers, talked about these different change orders, what the benefits are. One thing we need to keep in mind is we have a set budget of where we're at. In the budget worksheet, it does show that we have 3.2 million from CID and 1.2 million from city funds. It says total project funding is 4.8, but that 1.2 originally was part of 3.5. We did budget that as a city council, as a city. The council did do that to help offset our different costs of what could be in there, whether it was to pay our loan, whether we use the interest from it to help make payments, multiple options on there. So while it does have 4.8, 3.5 is our budget of what we have for this project. Again, ultimately council makes the call there, but 3.5 is what we anticipated going forward. One thing that we don't have a specific thing on here that we're going to ask Jeff here to clarify in a minute is our lights. We have the anticipated amount for that, but we do not have a final number on that. And again, actually, you have updated this. There's more change orders on here, but a lot of these are things that would be wonderful for the project. The council needs to decide what are our priorities. How are we going to stay in budget with everything we want to do? Of course, we want the best complex in the state, absolutely. But we also need to keep in mind these are sacred funds. They're tax money that we're dealing with, and so council needs to make that discussion. So we can go through each one of these items if council prefers. As I said, Councilman Allen was there as we discussed these different possible change orders. And Jeff, you will correct us if there's any that are estimates, whether they came from Armor, whether they came from Jones in the Mill. And then council, you get to decide where we want to go from there, what we want to accept, what we don't want to accept. Really, it comes down to where are the priorities, how do we want to do this with the allocated funds that we have available. That makes sense? So I'm here to answer any questions. I don't know if you want to go through line by line or talk about in general. I'm going to have Jeff come up here just so we can discuss any specifics that are on here.
Yeah. Just before you guys get talking, I'd just like to, remind that we had talked about trying to get some community support, community funds possibly. I would say any of those that we feel like we could reach out to the community for, where they might be willing to support something like that or put it in. I think that would be things like that we feel like we have to do to be prepared for things, or things that we feel like we need to do. Obviously, I think we need to do it, but anywhere where we can maybe see if there's community support of getting something, maybe they'd be willing to help with something like that. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Appreciate that comment, Don, and that's, goes right along the same thought process that I had as well. If we are gonna increase the budget, this was originally going to be more of a community project, a fundraise type project. We haven't done much fundraising. We haven't done a lot of that. So I think if we want extra things, I think that's a good avenue to go. Obviously, we do have 3.5 million. It is a little bit misleading, I guess, to say that we had the 4.8, because the original intent was to take the 1.2 million and pay down the original loan, or utilize the interest that we get from the 1.2 million, which is about 4.5. What is the interest rate right now? 5.11%, which is a little over 60,000 a year that we could apply to the loan without losing any of that money. And so the more we dip into that, I don't know. I think we had a budget. It was a good budget. And I think we need to work on trying to stay within that budget. So that's my own personal feeling. Go ahead, Jeff, with some of the things that.
If I can say one thing real quick, we do have a very loose template of different ways we're going to ask for community support. For example, the naming of the field. So there are those things that have started, but we do not have yet. So we don't count our eggs before sharing things. But I keep that in mind. There are options, but nothing is set. So
I think what Don mentioned is a valid point, and that is some of the things that need to go in now, infrastructure-wise. Maybe those are the top priorities, but batting cages, the outbuildings, things like that. Those are things that we could get funds and be built in tandem with this, but the project doesn't have to wait. We can start looking for fundraising sources and opportunities for those now. And I'm just talking, so it is. But why don't we go through, because there's even more than what I seen last time on there.
Okay, maybe the first thing I'll point out too is, so just to give a little explanation, at the very top you can see what the armor construction contract is that 2.074 million. And then underneath that I have the sports lighting, and that is a pretty good number. So the status on that is we should have the final design from the electrical engineer tomorrow, and we can get a couple state bids, state contract numbers back, and then make a decision there. But it's going to be right around there. So by the time you add those two together, you're almost 3.4 million out of the 3.5, if that's where you want to stay. Some of the things we talked about, maybe that if they're wanted would be more critical to do right now, are, we've kind of hopefully I listed those maybe towards the top, like one thing that was cut out originally was the concrete mow strip under the outfield fence. Right now, everything infield has a concrete mow strip around it or curb. The outfield does not. So that's one thing that's been brought up that obviously would be probably quite a bit more expensive to go back and try to retrofit that.
I do have a question on that. For a mow strip, a 2 foot by 1 foot seems overkill.
Yeah.
Could we go a foot deep and 8 inches wide or something like that? To me, that seems adequate and less than half the cement.
Yeah, that's just something that Armor had put together. We could definitely do that. I think the curb around underneath the backstops is 18 inches, so it's even smaller than what they had proposed there.
Yeah.
So we could save some there for sure. The backstop concrete wall, so the way we have it designed right now is we have a chain link backstop with a curbing underneath it. Some facilities, and you guys know more than I do, but some facilities have like a 2 foot concrete wall at the bottom, and then they put pads around it, and that helps to protect, like, your years aren't too bad, but sometimes the backstops get really bad from people running into them, and the balls hitting them over and over and over again, something like that. So obviously you wouldn't want to probably go try and look at that in the future. There's a desire, there's that there. You want to just go through the list? Batting cages, we kind of talked about, it's pretty self-explanatory. And those, would obviously could be done separate anytime. In the concept plan, we had a sidewalk going to the south from the center. So we have, kind of a cross that's concrete between all the fields, but we cut off the path going down to the south and tying into the existing walking path to save a little bit of budget. So if you wanted to add that back in, that's what that would be. The sprinkler layout, so some of that is just a preference on a type of sprinkler head. It's actually, so what's in the bid is maybe your more common that you see a lot of places, but the Parks Department uses the 700 series Rainbird heads. So between the layout itself and then purchasing the sprinkler heads, that would be those two items together. There could be some savings there if we wanted to kind of really nail down, thin up the design on the system itself, and how many zones and other things like that too.
Was there one question on that? Sorry. So it says the sprinkler layout and 700 series heads. There's 23,000. I thought the subcontractor came back with an increase of 39,000 in there. Am I thinking correctly, or am I?
So what we found out in asking for the pricing on this is the initial bid number actually had the 8,000 series heads included in that, where the bidding documents specify that the city would purchase the heads.
Oh, I see.
So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. So the cost difference here is basically giving the credit back for the cost of the 8,000 series heads too.
Makes sense. So the total overall differential cost of 48,000.
Yes, correct.
So I was anticipating more like 52.
Yeah.
So
that's the difference there. Yep. The maintenance shed is something that's been talked about with the kind of steering committee recently. So one decision that's been made is to have the power source, the service come down along the west side of the park past the existing building to where we have the walkway coming that we go over to the middle of the fields. And it's been talked that would be a great location for just a simple maintenance shed, whether that's now or in the future, something that can house some of the equipment, pads in the winters or anything like that to give them some more room. And then, when that was constructed, that's the electrical service would be right there as well. I didn't throw in, I haven't seen a cost from so obviously one thing that's not in a contract, right, is your cost for getting the power to that location. So that's just a cost the city will have, I don't know what it is right now. So that it would actually be a change order item, you'll need that regardless for the lighting. The south end landscaping, so even the initial concept that we had helped on a few years ago had left out kind of, there's 2 ears, whatever, that kind of go down further south. And those were not planned to be landscaped. So that's a pretty good estimate, taking our current landscaping bid amount and taking it there. So I would add sprinkler system and topsoil and sod to that area, and it is quite a bit when you start adding it up. The sewer line for bathrooms or something else. So originally early on, we talked about doing a concession stand in the middle or leaving it, plumbing it for sewer and water. The ground is not, the lay of the land isn't super great. We could get a sewer line to kind of the center of the concrete there. It would about have like a 1.5 foot cover, so it wouldn't be great to use in the winter, but that's the furthest you could probably get it. There's been a few other discussions that maybe we don't take it quite that far, but if you did want sewer under any of the concrete, now would probably be the time to do it. So it just kind of depends what the plans are there. Shade structures, obviously, I think there was an item on the agenda for the ribbon cutting for the one that's been installed, but the staff's been looking at some shade structures for just over the bleachers and then also a larger, it's more of an actual structure, not a canopy. It'd be like a wood or steel structure there. With the thought of if, the food trucks coming in, you can have that place for people to sit, put picnic tables there, things like that. And then probably the things after that are all, as we put this together, it was anticipated that the city would end up purchasing the benches for the dugouts, the bleachers, trees, tables, any of that miscellaneous items. So those aren't necessarily, you'll want some of that stuff anyway. I wouldn't call those a potential change order, but. And I would say these are all.
So the sorry to interrupt you. The bleachers, were they not included in the original?
No, those were for the city plan on providing those.
Okay.
So they were accounted for in the funding application, but not to have the contractor supply.
But if we do it, is that just the contractor installing?
This is the cost to purchase them. Is that right?
Yeah, just for the bleachers.
And have staff install them.
Okay.
There are things that we should maybe plumb for or set up for that we don't have to put in, let's say, batting cages, these footers or some of that we could have like prepped, but we don't have to put in and we can put in later.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought bleachers would have been part of the overall, and I'm not trying to be critical at all. I just thought that would be part of the overall project, the original project, not a change order.
Well, and this is not proposing to have the contractor purchase them either. This is just, so that's what this is really just a wish list of items. Some of them the contractor would perform, but as far as like even the trees and everything else, those are kind of numbers that Dustin's put together that the city would do themselves. So even if you approve these, like not all of these would go to the contractor.
Oh, sure. No, and I get that. And I know the bleachers, if we did it ourselves, I'm just wondering how we missed bleachers at a ball field in the original budgetary numbers. But then we've got to have bleachers.
Yeah, like I said, they were accounted for in the funding application and planning on overall budget. But as we put the plans and specs together, it was planned to have the city provide those rather than just have a contractor mark them up.
And maybe that wasn't communicated.
I'm gonna go after one of the big numbers, landscaping on the south end. We could do something there, but not full blown put in sod and lawn and stuff. I personally like having it almost zero scape, but having plants that are native to that area instead of trying to water the whole thing. So, I mean, we could reduce that number. I don't know if we could get it down even to 50,000 and just try not to make it green and lush, but keep it more natural looking.
They plant a native mix. There's lots of companies that sell.
Right now, what is it? Cobble rocks and sagebrush and prickly pears. I mean, we can clean it up a little.
Yeah.
One of my things, and I'll just get my concerns out of the way, just because then we can have the rest of the council if they have thoughts or questions or suggestions. But the thing that concerns me is the 4.2, almost 4.3 million. The project, when we first approved the project, we really were trying to focus on making it a community project and keeping the costs as low as we possibly could. We were looking at fundraising, and that's an obligation or something that we're going to have to tackle with staff and the council to really go out to the community and try to do that. And we really didn't do that, and that's okay. And so we agreed to go ahead and have this built with the funds that were available to us, the full amount of funds that were available to us, 3.5 million. And the thing that concerns me is if obviously we probably won't do all of these, additions, and some we'll do later. Some we'll need to do if we're going to do, we need to do them, as we're building right now. But the biggest concern is we have a budget, and the perception of government is they're constantly spending and going over budget, and that's a perception that we want to avoid, and if we can, that's fine. The other major concern that I have is the 1.3 for the lighting. I really have a hard time making decisions on additions to the ball fields without having a high number, because if that comes back higher than 1.3, and we've already committed to some of these other things, then we're that much higher on the project. The reason I have these concerns is I watched a project balloon like this 7 years ago, and that was the pool, and it was supposed to be a $7 million project, and by the time we got to this point, it was an $8.8 million project. And that's after they had cut as much as they could out of the budget. And we got there because we were getting the cart before the horse a little bit in what we were committing to before we had solid numbers. And so what I'd hate to see is that we repeat that again and put ourselves in that kind of a position. We already know when we approved it that the 3.2 million loan was going to be a little bit of a stretch for us to make that payment every year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so $170,000 a year, that's a larger liability than we had on the pool when we undertook the pool, and the pool is more than twice the amount of the project because they got so much grant funding for the pool. So it concerns me that we're already stretched with that commitment of $3.5 million. I'm okay with that. That was the council decision to go ahead and let's contract and do that pretty quickly. But to add all these other things, that's another $700,000. The 1.2 million, if we got the 5.1% from that, sets a $170,000 liability by $60,000 a year. That's a significant savings. But if we spend that money, that reduces that as well. And so we've spent our money. Plus, we could have bought down that loan also, bought down that payment. And so I love this project. Ravi and I talk about this project, fiscally responsible in the decisions that we make tonight.
Concrete.
I haven't checked with them, I don't do anything. There's no dirt work, I know, probably the one decision that is critical is just knowing which direction you wanna go with the sprinkler system. I'll get to your end question too, but, if we wanna stick with how the sprinkler system was designed and bid out, then they just need to order parts, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Nobody has this quantity of sprinkler system on.
I thought we decided we could go with what worked and then change them out later.
Yeah, I did some more researching on it, and I don't like the way the schematics was drawn up. The company that gave us the schematics, I think they shorted us how many sprinkler heads we could fit in. And therefore, it caused the material and the install cost to go up. So I think that those two numbers will go down by getting a second opinion, but we are definitely under a time restraint, so. Can the 8,000s work? Absolutely. Is my preference 700? Yes. Am I familiar with that? Yes. Is that what we're using at the park now? Yes. And I have full confidence in that head, and I know the longevity will be better than those 8,000 series heads. I know I'm being a little picky, but as a greenskeeper, that's what I have preference over, is the 700.
So we have many major problems with the 6504s because they're actually the head that are just a little bit below the 8,000.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. Down Centennial, they use them and they leave little rings, dead spots where it doesn't distribute the water very good. And we've never had this problem with 700 series. The coverage, it's just the coverage is very efficient.
And I looked at the difference between the 6504s and the 8,000s and the 700s, and the 8,000s do have the triple nozzle that do provide the spray close and far. The gallon per minute, the distance that they'll shoot is within, the 8,000s will actually shoot further by about 4 feet. The gallons per minute on the 8,000s are 6 gallons a minute less than the 700s, but we're not using that. It's 36 gallons a minute on the 8,000s. And so, those things are to take into consideration. And I don't want to shortchange it either. That is a $50,000 bill for preference in my mind, where the 8,000s are better than the 65s. Maybe they're subpar a little bit to the 700s. They seem like to me, they seem like an equivalent to the 700. They're like this is a golf course head. This is a ball field head, and they're pretty equivalent from what I can see. But I'm just tossing that out there too. And I think my feeling is, just with the overall cost and how it's inflating, we want a great field, and it's going to be a great field anyway with what we've already got. We might have to make a few sacrifices, is all I'm thinking, just to keep within budget and be fiscally responsible.
To take the bad cages off for now. Think about it later. The backstop concrete wall. Either way, one of the newest fields we play at doesn't have it. Some of them do. Do you have any thoughts on that, Rod?
No, I mean, I think as long as we maintain it right, and take care of it over the years, we can do without the concrete.
Yeah, that's a couple $100,000 we've already figured out.
So we have quite a bit of underground stuff still being poured up. The sprinkler system, and then we have some more water going out there for.
Well, we just need to make
Yeah.
You want that sewer line.
I think so too. Let's say that. If we ever want to build out, we don't have to do everything else and put sewer in.
I agree. Is the sewer line something that we have staff that we feel confident in doing, or is that something we definitely want to have a subcontractor do? 39,000.
I don't think we want to go with it's just bathrooms you're talking about. You can have those on the north end of the complex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to go as far.
They'll cover that.
Yeah, and that would even reduce the overall cost.
But if you're gonna stay out of the concrete, you can have your staff go install sewer later too. I mean, it'd be nice to have done just so that you get all the sod patched back and everything, but.
If we did that to the north side of the ball fields, we're only talking 50 to 100 feet, maybe. No,
Yeah, it would be all the way across the grass, I think that right now.
All the way across the soccer field.
Oh, it is. Okay, I thought it was where the tree line was.
Oh, no, it goes across the grass. You're right, yeah. So, yeah, it would be in the 100-foot range.
Yeah.
Extending it.
Like we're saying, we're not putting in cement, we'll see what we can do.
The other thing though too that we could do, we could follow up with the county. Irene was here, but they still have 50,000. We could follow up with UNA County. They have 50,000. I would say anything that we need to put in that we're going to bite off on, let's tackle that. But everything else we can hold on. I bet we could get if we really tried. I mean, the batting cages were donated by a local company. We can kind of put some of those things together and make an effort. Squeeze them in, I don't know. And I don't get a vote on it either, so I just get an opinion, not a vote.
Another two big numbers are the shade structures. They would be nice, but a lot of what we have shade in the other field is from trees, and that's gonna take a while, but.
Well, the shade structure in a lot of parks and stuff is a bit more of a safety thing too, like. Yeah, our parks, you hear heads up constantly.
So we keep the ball.
Yeah, so if you have a shade structure, kind of, yeah, I don't have 30s in the cement on this one. But I'll try, but that's one thing that we're trying to
I think the bleachers are given. Yeah, I'm gonna have those.
You mean the
benches in the dugouts?
They can sit on.
That's also, I don't know how, what the benches in the dugout, are they usually made metal or are they wooden? That might be something we could have the college make for us or something, like we did with signs.
But I think that's also necessarily make a decision on right now either.
Could we get a price on the mow strip to see if it went from like a foot to a foot by 8 inches?
Yeah.
And see what that would be, because that's gonna be a fairly quick one that we need, but maybe not immediate, so maybe we can bring that to our next council meeting.
The labor cost will be the same, is the forms and
Yeah.
everything, but the concrete.
Will be less than half, and so usually your labor costs 50% of the, so let's say 30% maybe.
I don't think your landscaping on the south would be something you could probably do later.
Dry scape idea, doing something where it's not just weeds, but.
Yeah, just reclaiming it back to its natural state. Oil field companies do it all day.
Right now.
Where are we gonna have the red mud run if we have grass there? Well, and one thing that concerns me about the grass, that's not as much about the overall cost as it is, again, the perception is we're in a state where we've experienced drought for the last how many years, and they're talking zero scaping on the Wasatch Front, and every time we go to CID, that was, when we went to CID, not every time, sorry. When we went to CID, that question came up several times, and when we talked to the county and some of these others to help fund the project, the first thing they said is, are you gonna put in artificial turf? And how are you gonna water this with the water shortage and everything else? And so, I think it's responsible to try to figure out another way to landscape that versus lawn. Just, we do have the water. Be responsible that way.
Mayor, is there a warning shot? Like down at the Union Field, I think they have a strip out in the outfield, there's no grass, right? Would that be something we could do? Then we wouldn't need the mow strip. If we just had a warning track, then you'd need less, I don't know.
I've not seen it.
I don't think it's not, that's a pretty big added cost.
Yeah. And there's special materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be an added cost.
Yeah, be spraying that too.
Yeah.
So it might be 6s, Don, is what we're hearing, because it's gonna be enough.
Okay, it was just something I thought of when I was thinking of the Union Field.
It's a good thought, for sure.
What about also the current complex that we have, the paths going in and out, they're not concrete, they're blacktop, right?
Right.
I don't know if the cost difference of that would matter. I was thinking the walkway to the south, even if it's just a path and it's just.
That's a thought. Why we could have our public works department do a 6-foot wide asphalt that would match the walking path to.
I don't know if it saves you a lot, but if it doesn't, that's something we could do.
Why not? Yeah. We could get a bid with our walking path, because I wonder if we could take the grants that we got for the nature park and walking paths down there, apply to basically all the paths that we're doing in Roosevelt City. That's a walking path that we could utilize.
Some of the funding is specific to phase one of the nature park.
Okay.
There is the Cottonwood Trail funding, which, yes, that makes sense, like potentially.
So that's something that we, even if we don't have the money now, we have a better shot at getting a grant for trails, and we can incorporate in that in the phase 2 or phase 3. Yeah, and we can kind of meander it up. Take that off over there.
I'm the least qualified here to have an opinion about any of this, but one thing that I have heard thrown around is that the lighting is actually something, if the infrastructure is in there, that the lighting could actually be held up. That's $1 million. Even in the summer, they're utilizing the lights, what did you say, Dustin?
Couple hours.
A couple hours at the most, and we have the fields that already have the lighting, if we needed to move to those. It just, to me, that seems like a place where if the infrastructure was there, you could look at $1 million down the road somewhere.
Sure. And that is an option. I've always envisioned a project with the lighting in it, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's not.
That does help the soccer program too.
That's a good point. It is also for the soccer field, the whole soccer complex.
And again, I'll just go back to that. Man, it's hard to make decisions on any additional.
We should hopefully have it cost in 8 days on the line.
That'll at least be before our next meeting, so that might be
One probably, I don't know if you're, so you had a public meeting or whatever, but if you're a regular council meeting, we may want that to be on.
the lighting. Yeah, and I think that would be a good time to talk about some of these other things once we have a hard number. Because it may free up some money, maybe it's 1.1 million, and we have another couple $100,000 that we can play with.
One that's what do you need tonight?
The sprinkler system. That's probably the biggest thing I
So
need.
if you're proceed as if we're doing all of this, what would you need in the next 2 weeks for sure? Approval on just the sprinkler system?
The sprinkler system is probably the critical path item right now. Yep.
That's the 23,470 and the 2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, 48,000.
That would be the increase.
But
There's already a sprinkler system.
if
there.
we just use the 8,000 heads, that's already.
It would actually have a decrease because, well, either way, the city could either purchase the heads or we just allow it.
Normally, and the only comment I'll make to that too is we're probably unique in the fact that we use the 700 heads, or most other entities use the other heads. So even though it's what we're accustomed to, it's not the norm. It's a golf course head that we use.
And the plan that's already drawn up has the coverage designed for those heads,
That's a
right?
question though. Dustin, I think, is a little bit concerned about the coverage.
Well, the difference between the 8,000 and the 700 is the 700 has actually a tail spray and a long spray up front. And so it's more efficient at getting the water out and it actually cuts your water time down. 8,000 does have three strings as well, but it's in the front. So it's gonna take a longer time to get your water out. So the 700 is more efficient at getting the water out and you water less time as well. So
how much would you save? Do you save water?
absolutely. With the 700 head, you would actually water less time because it doesn't have to go around.
But overall gallons, I don't know that you would say.
No.
And it's not
to run them longer.
Yep, you have to run them longer.
You're watering them on, and I did notice the 8,000, they have all their sales stuff, right? So they're like, oh, we have a heavier droplet water so that it's not misting and you get more to the ground and whatnot. I mean, all that stuff. Long story short, grass, you need a certain amount of inches of water, on it. And
John?
He left us.
He left?
Don, are you there?
Yeah.
We're waiting for a motion.
I was just gonna ask, I think we need to go ahead with the sprinklers with the 700, but I'd like to at least maybe get on, when we meet again, to get a bid, not just what it costs for the thing, but maybe for just getting it set up. Let's say we want changes in the future, what would we need to set up now so we don't have to worry about it in the future? I also think we need to go ahead with the sewer, and maybe the electrical, but I don't know about those, but my motion would be to go with the sprinklers and go with the 700s you've been talking about.
That's not the right motion, Don.
Well, then I rescind my motion.
I'm just kidding. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any discussion or any thought or discussion, a second or an alternate motion?
I'd make an alternate motion to stick with the sprinkling system we have.
Okay, we have an alternate motion to stick with the sprinkler system that we have. Any other discussion on that? Or, and yet we can have up to 3 motions at one time. Do we have a second on sticking with the sprinkler system that we have?
All second Rowdy's.
Okay, we have a second.
Hey, it'll still work. It's fine.
We have a second to Rowdy's motion to stick with the sprinklers that we currently have bid. Let's go roll call. Councilman White? Aye. Councilman Barrett?
Aye.
Councilman Bauer?
Aye.
Councilman Allen?
Aye.
And Councilman Busenbarg?
Aye, I'm supportive.
Okay. The motion is unanimous and passes. Okay, so that gives us some direction. We'll get a little bit more information in the next couple of weeks. And let's see where we at. That'll actually give us 3 weeks almost before our next council meeting. So that'll give us some time to put some more
Yeah, we
numbers
should
together.
figure out the lighting by then, and we'll, hopefully the plan will be to have you ready to make a motion on that.
So
The sprinklers was the only thing that you really needed.
That's the critical path on my right now, that we can keep going forward.
Because don't include like sewer and stuff like that. I think we need to have that.
I think we discussed it, but maybe you don't want to have a sewer under the concrete, that was it, so. We'll work with the committee on that.
thank you. Okay, Innovation Hub Exterior Design Approval. We have Craig with us tonight. So,
Good evening, I'll make it much shorter than the last one.
thanks, Craig. We've got 25 minutes.
Yeah. I just wanted to present the plans. We're ready to bid these again with just the exterior improvements, the shell of the building. You're talking roof and the windows. They're the main things. We did that, and you can see, just scroll through these plans. This shows what we cut out of the original project, which came in as over $800,000 for the low bid. So we cut out a whole bunch of things. You can see what I did on the sheets there, but anyways, we have the plans. So if you want to scroll down to the elevations, right there, we've changed. We've added stucco, and we had a work meeting, and we took a lot of the brick off, added stucco. We have metal roofing on there, however, we have an alternate bid item also to do asphalt shingle roof. If that, when the bids come in, we'll see. But anyway, it's basically cut down to just the exterior improvements. I did put together an estimate based on, what we received in the spring, these exterior improvements. And so we've got demolition and then the existing roof modifications is a big deal. Standing seam metal roof, and then the window installations, I estimate that to be approximately $328,000.
And that's pretty close to what we have funding for, correct?
So there's no eaves on the roofs, really, just like a.
It extends out.
It extends out
18 inches?
It extends out, well, it'll be 3 feet from that interior wall, but see how the columns come out.
Yeah, I can see.
You're basically gonna be about 6 inches beyond the edge of these columns,
Okay,
for an eave, and it'll be 3 feet basically from this wall.
okay. So on those columns, would it look better to just, build up those columns all the way to the eaves and group with that? I don't know. I'm not a designer, I'm just curious.
We looked at all of those options,
During the work meeting?
during,
I was on the phone, so I didn't get to see it, but I was there.
Okay.
But yeah, we kind of talked about all of those things and we, switching up that big main window at the center, and adding a stucco reveal around it is one of the big items we had and we thought would make a big difference in cutting those columns off.
And then, I don't know, so there's just a couple items on here that look a little bit different than what was anticipated or envisioned, I think. And it's probably what you're talking about, Dave. So like these areas that are popping out that look kind of prominent and just like they're out there in the middle of nowhere. I can see what's going on here is you see this, the front of the building right here.
Mhm.
This is set back. And technically I don't know that was the intent. So the drawing is not quite accurate. So the surface right here will not change. This will be cut off and then that'll be extended out to give an eave look on the front. But this column right here will be basically flush with that whole wall. Does that make sense? And so this will be recessed in here. And so this reveal looks a little bit different than it normally would. Because anyway, there's some things.
So there's still some things that's not showing that are
quite accurately, but it looks good.
Yeah, I guess I didn't get that. I thought, we were moving that wall in, extending the roof out. So.
Well, extending the roof out, yeah.
Yeah, and getting rid of that wall because it looks like.
So we just get rid of the wall above the roof, basically, and then.
There will be no parapet above the roof and we're extending the wall out and that, what you're doing will still be a shelf inside the building, which I'm getting rid of.
Holy shelf. The shelf is where we were gonna hide the ductwork, I thought. Coming across to supply for the.
Okay. Yeah, you're right about that. So, okay, so yeah, I'll.
Okay.
Anyway.
But it's pretty close.
Getting there.
All right, but anyways, we, with the council's approval, we can advertise this for bid.
Should we make a motion?
Yeah, or should we, unless you probably look at it, and then we can go back to the drawing board. We're trying to do something that looks decent, that's very inexpensive, and something that's not gonna be a money maker for the city, but it will be a benefit to small business and our economic development in the area, having the innovation hub. And so.
I remember talking about the bricks underneath those windows in front, how we were gonna have them, like, you can't really see it on the drawing, but there will be some bricks coming out, kind of giving it a fill on the outside, like a shell.
We need to scroll through a little further to the details. We have, right? You could pass it, scroll back. Right there, this lower corner detail has a section through it.
Zoom in on
Control V.
There you go.
Control scroll. They're just gonna, okay, but that's gonna be flush, it's not gonna pop out.
Yeah, I thought there was an angled brick at the top.
Right here.
Yeah.
The brick is turned the opposite direction.
Okay.
So called soldier brick.
It'll be flush at the front, it's not gonna come out past the lower brick.
There, I guess that depends on the length, but you've got a 3-inch wide. Your standard brick is 3-inch wide, you have a 1-inch air gap, so then you that. What I'm showing there is a 4-inch length on the soldier bricks. You could go longer if you want to.
All right.
Sure could, I can draw a detail like that.
Well, I'm just one guy, but I was just curious. Okay, I'm just trying to see what it, so I'm on Google here.
And at least this would give us a good idea of what it would cost to see if we can even move forward. I think the thought is just to go to bid and we've changed a few things. There was a lot of glass in it before and we've reduced the glass, reduced some of the brick, went to stucco.
Look at all the interior, no interior improvements at all.
And there was a skylight on the roof. We decided to get rid of that. And that's why we made the window, make sure that we still have the window in the front to allow natural light coming in. So it's still not a super, like, polished, but I think it's good enough to give us an idea if we're on the right track.
So if there's nothing happening inside, that'll happen later. Usually what, $180 a square foot in commercial interiors. I mean, or is it more now?
Our bids were like 300 square foot is what they came in last time. That's why we couldn't do it.
Well, we did have a lot of glass in there. We changed some of the design, but one of the thoughts is if we can get the exterior done. Vernal had one of their employees work on theirs for, I think it was a year or two, just doing the inside, and just kind of did it themselves. Yeah, but it at least seals the building, secures, we don't have any more leaks, and then we can start renovating the inside, tearing it out. We can do a lot of the demolition ourselves, and then hopefully prices go down. Or we can find more funding and then start the interior. And in the meantime, we can play basketball in there.
I move we let it go to bid.
Motion to approve to go to bid. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Baird. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
The next is the land use agreements with the Wills. Wasn't able to get a hold of them. They had a family emergency. And so we'll go ahead and postpone that one for now. But also the BID infrastructure policy, we're going to forego that tonight. Also the city attorney contract approval, there's still a little bit of discussion on that. So we're not going to worry about that tonight. Jones and Mill contract approval. Can we get that one up real quick? This one is, and just, Jeff, when we have an addition to the, the fees and things like that, if it's over 10,000, it has to go before, council for approval.
Yep.
And so, I got that and I was like, oh crap. So if we could get those sent directly to Sunshine and maybe just emailed as a hard copy first, and then we're going to get on the council approval, and soon as it's approved, then a digital copy can be sent.
And this is for is this the gun range?
Yeah, this is the gun range. I think it was 12,000 or something like that. In the funds that were issued to, it would come out of the gun range budget, 300,000. So we'll have to make that decision tonight.
Okay. Yeah.
I see those and I panic because I'm like, oh, I want to sign that, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes they just get sent by DocuSign, and our intent's not to just have to sign it, but go through the right process.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I didn't think that there was.
But I think we can be better and make sure they get on the agenda when that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So anything just 10,000 and above, and I have that in, like I said, no malintent there at all. It was just one of those. I get nervous because I'm like, crap, I know I want to sign this, but then the communication at least is there.
Yeah.
So that if it takes a couple weeks, then don't think that we're not going to get you taken care of.
Yep, no worries there.
Awesome.
Any questions on it for me?
I don't think.
What?
I don't know anything to put up to this one.
Well,
you can do the next one too, if you want to include it in your packet.
It's actually on here. I got it. Oh,
Pass it around.
yeah, that'll work.
Should be double sign probably.
So what this is some modifications to the gun range, and particularly the 200-yard range is what this means to for it.
That and then assisting with like the DWR application and some of that kind of stuff. So
have you heard anything?
the only thing I've heard is that the lady from the DWR was coming out to do a cultural survey. That's the latest I heard.
I have to say, Jones and DeMille, Eric and Jeff both have been doing a fantastic job helping us try to get those funds. And been Johnny on the spot when Gary's needed that stuff. It's just
It's taking forever.
so frustrating.
I mean, the positive thing we keep hearing from them is that first in line, but I think we've been hearing that for a couple of years too, but it seems like we're getting closer to where hopefully that money should actually be out. So.
Yeah, so we want to be patient. That's one of those, if we're patient, it could be a $900,000 grant to that gun range. And that's, I think that's proof. It's almost not worth waiting for anymore, but it's probably still worth it. Yeah.
Can't reach it.
So, yes. Any questions on that 12,000 additional? And that would come out of the gun range budget. So, if seeing no questions, would entertain a motion.
I'll move, we approve.
To approve, do I have a second? Second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Thanks, Jeff. And Mike, I was gonna include you in that too, but you're good.
We should have sent Mike up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want me up there.
All right, city building discussion on the trees, just cut them down. Next.
Save the one.
Here.
So I requested this to be on the agenda tonight. We've got our city trees that are out in the city parking lot right here. They're getting old, they're getting too big, they're becoming a very nuisance to where cars are no longer parking underneath them. I know trees are a very sensitive topic, and so what I'd like to recommend with council's approval is to remove those trees and replace them with better spaced out, healthier, younger trees, make it more aesthetically pleasing to the city offices here. If you take a close look at them, you'll see the trees are just, they're old. They're really close together, there's a lot of them, and yeah, and they're, for lack of better words, they're shedding really bad. It's, yeah, it's gotten to the point where if you notice staff starting to park away from them. And again, we don't want to, public to park underneath them, but we don't want, just not a great place to park.
What are you gonna replace them?
That's I want to talk with our parks department, make sure something, I was thinking something like Russian olives. I heard they grow really well.
Elm tree.
Yeah, but I want to make sure it's something that will work long term, and again, make sure we have the proper spacing, that we have it.
Just an idea in that area, and so it would be an ongoing maintenance. Those trees that are, they have the several leaves on one branch, and then they're small, what are they? Honey locust. Like that would provide some shade there, that look nice, but then it's not huge maintenance.
There's a lot of options that are clean trees, what I call clean tree that are.
Yeah.
Like natives.
Well, in our area too, something that's not going to die, don't put any maples out there. I've tried that, they don't live very well.
The type of tree will come back before council, because if we have approval from council, this will need to go out, see what it will cost. We're gonna have to come back for final approval on the budget. But this is the preliminary step of, yes, start down this path. So the to remove, they won't be gone tomorrow. No action will be taken until we actually get some pricing. This is an approval to let us start down that path.
Motion to that effect?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yeah, Cloud, sorry.
No, you're.
Cloud and Allen. Yep. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Lee, the moment we've all been waiting for, I think. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, brush truck. Fire brush. I got it on there.
So, in the capital projects, there was a budget of $150,000. We came up with that number, we talked to the county, they purchased 2 trucks, this is one of their 2 trucks they got. They purchased them a year and a half ago, it's out at fire apparatus in Springdale. And that was their price. Price going down, and of course, like everything else, the rate didn't go down.
Dang it.
So the truck that he just showed you is Outback Fire Apparatus, and their bid came in at 195, 294. The other truck that we priced out is called the Skeeter truck, and that's the bid that's up there, and it's 242. So the 195 is the cheaper option, and it's the truck that will do what we want it to do. The county purchased the Ford and Dodge. They got the Dodge right off the bat, and they had ready to go through the Ford. The other thing with the Skeeter, it says it's a 23 to 24 month build. And the Outback one says 30 to 45 days upon receipt of deposit.
It's cheaper and faster, you don't get that very often.
We just needed the approval to go with that higher increase. Hoping that our water tender sales, so the Outback, and all that money could go towards offsetting that cost.
What does the budget look like, Rhonda?
We have 150 set aside, and then we also had put in the budget that any revenue that we bring in from the sale of the old tender would go towards this vehicle, so.
Well, we don't want to hold up the decision on the sale of that, so if we, worst case scenario, can't sell it, we have to come up with $44,000 or whatever.
We would need to reopen the budget at that point.
And there's money that we can move over. Okay. I think we ought to wait till next year and see if the price goes down.
I'm sure that would be a good idea.
Well, any questions for Chief Lee?
I know that is on there. What we came was to say that here's the difference in the prices. But if we go with the Outback, we can give them a 20% deposit right now, and that gets them going. We have that 30 to 45 day. We get that started and that's much good.
Questions? Seeing none, would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, to move forward.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous. Thank you.
There is a folder, probably down the zones, see there that has all of these capital projects in there.
Fantastic. The next one is the cargo trailer, but I guess that's crossed off the list for tonight. Ammo and rifles, my favorite subject.
This is, so the ammo is just, that's what the police department uses for practice qualifications, all that, in a year. It also contains, it has the rifle ammunition, it's what then one is the pistol ammunition. So that's the two of them, and it comes out to about $8,000. And is there any questions on that part? No. And then the other part is, last year we was able to get some donations and we were able to buy 6 rifles. And this is for 8 rifles, which would finish so that all the officers have the same.
And is that included in the 8,000 or would that be?
No, well, that's the other one, that's 11,871.
Okay, so a total of 19. Okay.
Closer.
That's a good budget though.
We would like those items.
We've already approved in the budget, and this is just the last thing.
You got the hard costs on them, so. Any other questions? Seeing none, we entertain a motion.
I'll motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Allen. Do we have a second? To approve, I'm guessing. Approve. Okay.
Second.
Second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Utility vehicle, that's gonna get rubber mulch for the parks. And are you gonna do the mini golf? Or are you gonna do the mini golf?
So currently what we have for the surface at the Constitution Park is wood chips. Wood chips, it's been there since we first put in that playground. Rubber mulch is a little bit easier and it actually keeps in place, and it's also softer for safety purposes. It is more money. Actually, it'll stay better than wood chips. Wood chips right now, they blow everywhere, especially in the wind, and they make a mess, and it's a maintenance nightmare. Rubber mulch, would stay in place, it would last longer, we wouldn't have to buy wood chips every year, or rubber mulch every year like we do with wood chips. And I think it's a nice addition to our playground. Did we have?
What's the lifetime on the rubber mulch? Wood chips, like you said, every year.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Wood chips, it's 10 years, or sorry, rubber mulch is 10 years. Okay. So before you need to do anything there, and we had a cost estimate around 39,000. I'm working with them. We're gonna say 39,000, but we're hoping more around 30. I'm still working with some vendors.
The approval is for up to 39,000.
Yeah.
Our expectation is that it will come in lower than that.
Okay. And that's also budgeted.
30,000 was the budget that we had.
Okay. So again, but we probably ought to, well, I guess we could approve it up to whatever we decide, but if the council's inclined to, again, we'll have to open the budget, and we have to anyway, so that's one of the modifications that we make.
Sorry, one other feature we put in there, that's about 6 inches of is what they recommend.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Does anyone here have rubber mulch or dealt with it before? Because
I've been to a park that's had it.
Okay, because I've looked into getting it before, and I know people that were ripping it out because they didn't like it because it was not up to deal with their playground, so.
I liked it the one day we were there.
Yeah.
Again, I was visiting.
Smooth or just loose?
It's shredded rubber, so it's kind of like wood chips, but it's more softer surface for fall and stuff.
It'll end up on the grass quite a bit, I'm guessing, just.
It could.
happens. Yeah.
That's my experience with it. I have used it residential, in a residential application, and that's what I don't like about it is that well, wood chips will do the same.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
But the rubber, when it ends up in the grass, it stays there and it doesn't go away ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. I know people that have got it that decided they did not want it, so, but I don't know if that's, so what's your, would you
just
buy it again, I guess?
Yeah, I would. The color is, it's nice to keep the color.
And we can choose whatever color we want, you know, we have a lot of options on the colors. So keep that in mind.
Main Street.
I'm not against it, I'm just curious.
Okay, I understand it's fairly flammable. Is that true, or do they have retardants over it?
I'm not sure on that. I would have to have one of the representatives of myself and then find that out for sure if it is fine, but I'm not aware of that.
Recycled tires, so.
You'd have to have quite a bit of, even rubber in general, you'd have to have quite a bit of heat to get it going. I'm sure once it gets going, it'll burn really well.
Yeah. That's something I can definitely research.
But yeah, when it's firing, I would guess that the wood chips are flammable.
I'm more worried about being one, but also that if there's any gas release, because wood chips would be just smoke, whereas and some probably toxic stuff, but I don't know about the rubber mulch, if there's any toxic, if it did catch on fire.
That'd be something I'd have to look into for sure.
Yeah. Good thoughts. Any other questions? Seeing none, would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman White. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Dustin.
Maybe we could just define that, was that up to a specific amount or?
Did you, no,
Up to
30,000? Okay. Mr. Aaron, you're all about golf.
Hey, this budget, and you're welcome to open and approve more if you like. We will not be needing a sprinkler system. We will be putting in synthetic. And when it comes to trees, we'll remove some trees and maybe bring in some more trees.
Nice.
So we are looking at possibly doing a mini golf course. Price, if you can scroll.
I know what idea this is.
Scroll the other way real quick for me. Here's some examples. There you go. Thank you. There's a local company, well, Utah company out of London. They go around and they do quite a few of these projects. Some of the bigger ones like Fiesta Fun in St. George or Boondocks. A lot of those projects are done from out-of-state companies. We do have bids from them as well. We're not thinking of going that kind of scale with this, kind of a little bit more low-key. Similar to the picture you see here, they just did this at Zermatt in Heber, so it's something that you can definitely go and look at. And, yeah.
Is it a publicly owned course?
These are probably private, yeah, these are private. He has done some for homeowners, miniature golf courses there, but Zermatt is private. This one we're looking at doing public. There's been some different places talked about where it could be. We think a good fit is behind the ambulance building, the old ambulance building, right there in that space between the basketball courts and that, and then
the museum.
Yeah, the museum. If we didn't want to charge a minimal fee, we could open up that museum a little bit and have a spot for, a high school kid to sit there and maybe rent some clothes and balls, very inexpensive. We want it to be welcoming, we're not trying to build a Boondocks or Fiesta Fun type course, something just kind of more simple, and it really just depends on how detailed you want it with the price of, what happens on pricing, so.
Do you have an idea of a roundabout price?
Yes, so for an 18-hole golf course with kind of minimal elevation and kind of minimum features is about $80,000 to $90,000, and that's from the local Linden company. The other companies, they pretty much just do upscale with all your windmills and things like that. And they're about $180,000.
Could we need a full 18, or could we get away with 9 or even 12? Or
yeah, and that's one thing we looked at is maybe doing a little bit nicer 9-hole course or 12 or 13 holes, depending on how many we can fit in there, with some more elevation, maybe some more rock features, while staying in budget without doing the full 18. The gentleman actually came out and looked at it. We walked the property a little bit, and he was pretty excited, and we started having ideas with the area we showed him. So
is there a price for them to just design it for us and give us, before we approve it, maybe show us what it should look like?
yeah, when I talked to him about that a little bit, and he goes, "It's hard for me to do that because we build them on site." He's like, I can kind of get you. He just hand draws his blueprints. He's like, I can kind of hand draw a blueprint for you, but until we get here and start moving dirt and shaping it, he's like, I really don't know, but we can get pretty close to what it's gonna be, I'm sure.
So even the price isn't solid until he's installed it, basically. Sounds like he's doing it as he goes. He doesn't really have a plan.
He does. We'll go to him and be like, okay, we want rock wall. He will come up with a plan. He sent me one that he kind of sketched out already, just on paper with some areas and rock walls and things like that. But he goes, it really just depends on what you want as you get going in the project. I'm sure we can, sit down and really build it out with him and get an idea, especially from looking at some of these other places, like at Zermatt, we could go and look at and say, we like this, we like that.
And so people can charge for the, to draw it up and things like that, just kind of get a better estimate of how much it would cost.
Yeah.
One of the, I like the idea, I really do. Anytime I see a mini golf course, I play it just for fun. But I have seen a lot of them that weather poorly, very poorly. And with our, with our winters and things like that, that would be my only concern. And so how do we mitigate that, and what is our response to that? How long does this last before we have to really start, money in it, the boards start rotting out, things like that? I've seen that. So it'd be an ongoing maintenance for us.
Yeah, so this is, it is obviously synthetic, but there's not a lot of wood or anything like that. He lays it over the top of dirt and sand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, the synthetic part of it is, he guarantees it. I'll have to find out exactly what his warranty policy is on it, but This is stuff that is installed.
So it's not boxes and things, it's actually landscaped in and then just covered with a synthetic turf.
And just for some similarities, there's a golf course, one of the ideas we got from this is Cody, Wyoming, which, you know, their weather is very harsh as well. They have a city-run mini golf course like this, and they did it with the sole intent of an inexpensive thing for people to, and they're a very touristy town, so people could just stop in and pay. And so I was really curious, and I asked them a lot of questions about it, and they charge $1 to play, and that essentially pays for the high school kid that's giving them a club and a ball, and it pays for all their maintenance. So they didn't say, and I didn't ask, built the course, but it does do all of their maintenance, all of their upkeep, and their intent behind it, which I think is our proposal as well, is this is not meant to be the top of the line. If Boondocks wants to come in and build a fantastic moneymaker, great. The idea behind this is something for our community that's inexpensive, that people can go out date night, or someone can take their, you know, if they have 10 kids, they can take their kids and play for a very small price, because it's not about a money maker. It's about to give our community something that we can maintain and just really a place for people to go. So we can help those individuals and say, we don't have stuff for the kids, which we know we have a lot. We have a lot of community, but it is another one of those things that we've seen it done. We know we can replicate it.
One question that I have is, would we fence it to keep, because I'm wondering, you know, you get some people that are gonna vandalize it, you get some kids that will come over and just mess things up without supervision.
And say you're on camera. I did ask Cody that as well. Theirs is, at the time, they did not have a fence around it. It wasn't right along their main street, so it was in a more public area than we're looking to do. But that is a conversation we're gonna have to have. Our location is really good, it's very visible. But I think if we don't defense it, I think cameras are definitely a good option. And again, the idea behind it is it's very, nothing upscale. It's hard to vandalize it. But that is a good question, whether or not we have to do that. Chief said he can actually just station a police officer there. David,
I'll throw a sleeping bag.
I can work on it as well.
And for me, I don't know that anybody, you'd hope no one would come vandalize, but just unsupervised kids coming and throwing the rocks and things and messing it up and stuff.
Because one of the questions I asked Cody is, how do you enforce people actually paying to play? And they said, as cheap as we do this, if somebody brings their own putter and ball, we don't even care.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their sign, they have somebody there, but they said they really wanted to keep it that low key. The individual they had to rent stuff was literally help pay for that person and then the upkeep. So again, the fence is a tough decision, because how open do you want it? But all that stuff, good policy decision for council.
Another thought too is instead of biting up on a lot of holes, kind of like we talked about with Preston, do maybe 9 and just see how well it goes. And then if it goes well, we can always add another 9. But if it doesn't, then we haven't spent this much and now it's kind of a waste.
Is that space the farmer's market uses?
Yeah. Yes. We'd love the farmer's market to go to the Old Mill Park. It's more visible from Main Street anyway. And I think there would be plenty of space there. I'll bet there's better parking there too. Well, what time does the farmer's market start?
Thursday afternoon.
3:30. 3:30, okay. So those businesses are still, the parking's being utilized by.
I love the idea, I just think we keep losing green space.
The old park? Yeah.
That is one conversation. I know that we've talked with Dustin. He's got some concerns with irrigation right there. So the approval we're seeking tonight is not set on that location yet. We need to come back and get a specific location, because there are a couple things we need to clarify. The idea right now is Old Park. That's one of the locations we're looking at next to the ambulance shed, but there's even concerns with irrigation. We know the farmer's market uses it, so that exact location there is not set yet. Other than we do want it visible from the street, because that helps with that.
We could put it in the middle of the disc golf course.
So what are we?
Right in the sand.
It's getting late. So what are we looking for tonight? Yeah, what are we looking for tonight as far as the?
It looks like he's got a capital project request for approval for 67,000 for generic.
60 to 70.
We have 85,000 on the original capital budget.
Okay.
There was 85,000. Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, I forgot to finish that form. I got sidetracked. I just noticed it's not complete. But inside of that form is also a list of all the capital projects, and so it is. It is.
So
on
maybe
that list.
the approval would be contingent on finding a suitable spot for it. And maybe that would come back before council before groundbreaking or anything.
You can always put it down on Fifth East, what's up, Fifth East there.
I know
Sometimes I can get like 13 feet.
We own right there next to one of the councilman's home.
Yeah.
Yeah, any designs, I mean, if we get approval, we'll bring any designs and, things like that to you for.
I think it's a fun idea.
Well,
any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Seeing none, would entertain a motion for or against.
I'll make the motion to go ahead and get started on it.
okay. And so that means that they can spend up to the amount budgeted in capital projects, or what is it?
Just kind of get a design.
Design?
I mean, I would, so the motion would be approve the funding contingent on finding a suitable spot and
yeah,
qualifying the design. Is that? Or approving the future design.
yeah, he said.
Mayor, do we need to stipulate 9 holes also, or does that not?
I think that would be, I don't know, personally, I think that would be important. I wouldn't want to go a big course and then it go to waste, even if it was cheap enough to do. But
I think you need variety.
I don't get to make a motion, so.
More holes better.
You want to do 7?
Yeah.
What's your motion? Is it up to 9 holes?
It's late.
If I give you a recommendation there, have Aaron come back and he can price it out at 9 hole and 18.
Let's do
And
that.
then it's like $1,000 more than, yeah. So I think his hand, tie his hands, when we don't know what the exact number will be.
Do we have a second for that? Second by Councilman Allen, all in favor? Any opposed? Any motion passes.
So do we not sign this then with that motion?
No,
They're all.
we'll have you sign something. I think I got it.
There's been a vehicle lease.
Whatever you wrote is good.
Yeah, let's roll through these quickly. Vehicle lease,
We have a new contract with Unified, that's the city car and one of our other vehicles is through. We have some of the vehicles that we have leased through Bancorp that are now up, the 2-year lease is over. We're rolling those over to Unified. Unified is a year-on-year basis, and so we can choose each year to keep the lease. The price is about the same, no matter which one we go through. So, our intention is to get to where maybe we have every 3 years of rotation so that we have 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, and then somebody else can have it when, we have to start doing maintenance on it.
gotcha. And what is
And the contract is in Brent's hands and he's gonna look it over. It's just basically spelling out how we go about continuing year.
and it's in the budget?
Yeah.
Do you have an amount?
It's approximately 5,000 to 6,000 per vehicle, depending on what it is.
Okay,
Our one-ton diesel that we have through them now is cheaper than a 3.5 ton.
gotcha. So my recommendation would be, if the motion is to approve it subject to council review, or, legal council review.
I'll move.
A motion by Councilman White, we have a second?
Second.
By Councilman Cloward, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any motion passed. Hey, if you want to get anything approved through the council, put it on an agenda when we're at 9 o'clock at night. We just want to. So,
There's
just
a
remember
last
that.
one in there that was not on the agenda, but it is part of the, nature park. Yes, that was
Did we
already,
sign that one?
that one had already, Ryan had gotten the pre-approval on that.
That's part of the phase one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, bro, take us home. Just take us home. All the way. Let's do this.
Really quick. We have the city employee fall barbecue coming up. That is the council-led one. Last year we did that a little late in the year. It was really cold. So I talked with Aaron. He's gonna send council some open dates in September to make sure it works with your schedule. So if you'll just look at that, we can plan that for next meeting. Next item on there, these are just for your calendaring. I want to make sure that you're always invited. And I did send a calendar invite, so it should show up on your calendars. On August 17th, on Thursday at noon, there is a Central Park shade structure ribbon cutting. Popsicles and ice cream will be served at that. August 21st at noon is the sports complex groundbreaking. Even though groundbreaking is open, but we still want to have an event there. Hot dogs will be served at that one. And these are for the public as well. If council gives us the okay, Sunshine will start sending these. She's done some phenomenal advertisements here, so we can get that sent out. And then this Sunday at 7 o'clock, we have Back the Bluish Black. Called Back the Blue, but our officers are in black. We call it blue. And Chief and Mayor are both speaking at that, so that should be a really good event. That's Sunday.
I won't bore you to death, but I'm not making any promises for chief.
So unless there's any concern, we don't necessarily need a motion, but we're gonna go ahead and advertise for those unless.
I think it's great. And I think one upcoming one that really quickly, the gun range, there's some things that'll be done here shortly as far as shooting benches and things like that. Gun ranges is working on. And I think we didn't do a groundbreaking, but it'd be appropriate to do a open house or something like that when that's ready to get going. And that'll be still this fall, whether we get that money or not for the rest of the range. It's something we need to look at as a council as well and make sure it's open to the public when it gets to that point, which means we're gonna have to lock the gate into there and kind of monitor it a little bit.
I'll give you, we'll set a date on that one. Okay. Event approval, so this year for downtown, if you went to Halloween trick or treating last year downtown, it was awesome. Tons of people, but it was a little concerning of the traffic with the cars. Aaron has worked with the PD and sent an application to the state to close State Street not State Street, Highway 40 for 2 hours for that event. We have not heard back. We should hear back any day. But as long as the council's okay, the city doesn't run in charge of that event. It's Larry that was here earlier, but we want to work with her and help her out. That event keeps growing. It is a huge one. So once we hear back from the state, whether or not we have approval, we'll know for sure. We're hoping it would be by tonight. So I guess technically we're seeking a tentative approval from you. The state says no, we're out anyway. But again, that could be a really fun event that, again, we just want to make sure it's safe. There are a lot of kids and big trucks were still driving by. So I guess we're seeking, we don't need approval now because we haven't heard back from the state. So if you're okay, we'll table that one. But I did want to put that on your radar.
Let's move to your city manager report real quick and then we'll do the other two.
Real quick, there's capital project one. You have your list there. Please review those. Let us know if you have any questions. That's just a snapshot of capital projects. So you would get a monthly one of these for every project. And the city manager report, I'm going to just include that in there. If I don't sit down, I'm going to fall over in 3 seconds. Any questions for me? I'm dealing with a little medical. Any questions?
But I really appreciate nothing, man. I love that you're inviting us to meetings. I love that we're being a part of this stuff. It feels really good to kind of see it all happening. And I know you guys have been going hard for years, ever since you started, but it's kind of cool to be a part of it and to see it a lot closer for me anyway.
Perfect. And similar to that, things like this, if we can ever do anything to keep you guys more informed, you just let us know. We're happy to keep you informed, keep you part of it.
Just one quick comment, just wanted to thank, I know Ryan Claiborne's not here, but he's been coming on Friday on kind of his own time working out at the nature park. I went down last Friday, he was there moving some timber and stuff. It looks great. It's really coming together. So anyway, I just appreciate all the work by staff, but especially a shout out to Ryan, even though he's at a Braves game.
Councilman, I believe he's at a Yankees game.
Thanks, Josh. Let's move to the purchase orders and don't really have a financial review, but do we have an approval on the purchase orders? Okay.
We're not spending.
Fine. Okay. We're gonna forego the capital projects. If you wanna know about what's going on, read it in your packet. I don't see any committee reports other than what we've talked about. Items for future discussion, we'll take to the next one. We do have a need to go into closed session, but we maybe, I don't know that it's an immediate need. It might be helpful to go in fairly quickly. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Should we go into closed session? We might as well. There is one. Yeah. Okay, so, and can you just tell us, what we're going into closed session for, just for the record? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we go into closed session as for the purposes listed in Utah Code 52-42051D.
Motion, do we have a second? Second by Councilman Flowers. Councilman Wayne. Aye. Councilman Barry.
Aye.
Councilman Flowers. And Councilman Allen.
Aye.
Councilman Busenmark, you gonna stick with us through the closed?
Again, if you want. I say aye.
Okay, sorry, we're gonna lose you, Councilman Busenmark. And so you're off the hook for the rest of the meeting. Because they can't keep you on
Yeah, sorry,
and keep the
if
cat and
you-
turn the camera off.
Okay, not a problem. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. See you. Back in regular session, you have the recording up and going? Perfect. Any other discussion? No. We have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjourn.
Second? Second by Councilman White, all in favor? Aye.